Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Fiona G.
And I'm Carrie Dunst.
Over 100 people are dead after Hurricane Helene swept through multiple states, and more than 2 million homes are still without power.
Vice President Harris cuts her West Coast campaign swing short, and former President Trump heads to Georgia. We hear the local officials' updates.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu addresses the Iranian people directly as the Israeli-Lebanon conflict continues. We'll have an expert break that down for us.
President Biden on Sunday approved over $560 million in defense support for Taiwan. It's the latest move by the U.S. to boost the island's military in the face of rising tensions with China.
President Biden says he will not intervene if dock workers strike. What shortages could occur if both sides cannot come to an agreement?
In France, the brutal murder of a 19-year-old girl has reignited a debate on immigration policies. Police arrested a suspect who was due for deportation, but was released from detention earlier this month.
Britain is shutting down its last coal-fired power station as part of plans to decarbonize its electric grid, but the move is raising renewed concerns about energy security.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Former President Donald Trump is now speaking in Valdosta, Georgia, this after being briefed on Hurricane Helene response. Let's tune in now.
Again, Franklin Graham and everyone at Samaritan's Purse. You people are fantastic, by the way, and people appreciate you very much for the incredible partnering and work that they've done, not only here, but all the time. They always seem to be the first ones at areas that need help. A short time ago, I received a briefing on the situation here in Valdosta from FEMA and the National Guard, as well as a number of state and local officials, quite a few of them. It's amazing the way it's just all been pulled together, really amazing. I want to thank Mayor Scott James, Valdosta, where is Scott? Where is Scott? Hey, Scott. Thank you very much. Really great. Really great job. I want to thank Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones and Agricultural Commissioner Tyler Harper, representatives, as I said before, Austin Scott and Mike Collins, and all of the others present. I also want to thank Governor Brian Kemp, who's working around the clock to get this problem solved. He's working hard around the clock. We also have a salute to the incredible first responders, law enforcement heroes, and they are heroes, doctors, nurses, firefighters, Coast Guard, National Guard, who have been serving with such extraordinary grace, and the work is incredible. Nobody thought they'd see something like this. You're the best. You are truly the best of America, and you're appreciated by America. Sometimes you don't feel that way, but you're very much appreciated by America. And I know each and every one of you is giving to this community of everything you have. You're doing things that you wouldn't normally even think about doing. The people on the ground are doing the best they can in every challenging circumstances. We do need some help from the federal government. They have to get together, ideally with the governor. That governor needs to, he's been trying to get them, and I'm sure they're going to come through. But he's been calling the president, hasn't been able to get him. But they'll come through, I'm sure. And Georgia and North Carolina need the help probably worst of all, but North Carolina has really been hit. They have really been hit. They say nobody's seen anything like that at all. Every part of these communities has been affected by this brutal storm, and countless Georgia cotton and pecan farmers. The farmers have been affected, Kelly, very, very badly, very, very badly. And I love those farmers, and we're going to take care of the farmers. There's no question about it. Their crops and their livelihoods have been so badly affected. Swift actions needed to get the farmers access to loans and disaster recovery aid to help them quickly get back on their feet so they can help our nation prosper. I always support our great farmers and agricultural communities, and just go out. I know that the help is going to be there, and Help will soon be on its way. There's no question about that. With the path to full and complete recovery, we will work very hard. It won't be easy because this one is so bad, but we know in our hearts, God is with us. God is strongly with us, and that the American people are stronger than any challenge that stands in our way. We have a lot of challenges in this country, more than we should have, frankly. But the American people are very strong and very smart. Working together, we'll overcome these hardships. We'll endure. We will rebuild Valdosta and every other town that has been so badly hit, and we'll emerge stronger, more united, and more prosperous than ever before. You're going to be stronger, better. You're going to learn a lot from it. And again, we pray to God for those that have been so badly injured, and in particular, for the people that are no longer with us. And God bless everybody. And Franklin, I want to thank you very much for your being here so quickly, very, very quickly, always very early. And Franklin, maybe I could ask you to say a few words. Franklin Graham, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, that there, we just heard former President Donald Trump speaking in Valdosta, Georgia, really there to talk about the damage of the hurricane, but also to thank first responders for all that they've been doing. Trump has said that he's been briefed by FEMA and the National Guard, also saying that there needs to be more aid to the people in these areas. Indeed, he mentioned the governor has not yet been able to connect with the federal government, but he said that for sure the assistance and aid will come through. And Trump also made a strong call spiritually, said God is with us and that we're stronger than any challenge. The American people, we're smarter, and we'll get through this. So. That's right, Carrie. Now a little more on the details of the hurricane so far. At least 100 people are dead after Hurricane Helene swept through multiple states. And the number might keep rising as some are still unaccounted for. Here's the latest on the situation.
Hurricane Helene has already claimed the lives of over 90 people. Search and rescue missions are underway. North and South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, Tennessee, and Virginia are affected. Financial damages could go up to $100 billion, according to estimates. Georgia Governor Brian Kemp spoke on the situation, despite many cell phone towers being down, affecting the quality of the signal.
This storm literally spared no one. It took one of our finest and a firefighter, Leon Davis, who was with the Blackshear Fire Department Assistant Chief while responding to a call.
Helene also slammed Florida's Gulf Coast, destroying homes and triggering days of heavy rain. It washed out roads, decimated neighborhoods, and left many communities without water and basic necessities.
We worked really hard with the Department of Transportation to clear the roads. And so as of now, we've done, tens of thousands of miles have been cleared.
Helene left around 2.7 million people throughout the South without power. The White House says President Biden plans to visit affected areas this week. That's once he can do so without disrupting emergency services. On Monday afternoon, former President Trump tweeted, "We are now heading to Georgia in order to pay my respects and bring lots of relief material."
Hurricane Helene has claimed at least 110 lives so far. This new milestone reflects the storm's devastating impact.
Yes, President Biden said today that the federal government will help with storm survivors for, quote, as long as possible. Biden said he hopes to visit the affected areas on Wednesday or Thursday, but only if those areas can handle the logistics that come with a presidential visit as they focus on the recovery from the storm.
I urge everyone returning to their communities and home to listen to local officials and follow all safety instructions. Take this seriously. Please be safe. Your nation has your back, and the Biden-Harris administration will be there until the job is done.
Recent fatalities include 5 people in Henderson County, North Carolina. A sheriff's deputy was also swept away in Mason County, North Carolina. The state has reported the highest number of deaths with 42 confirmed. Buncombe County alone has 30 deaths, with more expected to come out. The heavily forested area suffered extensive damage from fallen trees.
Yes, and over in Asheville, North Carolina, residents still lack communication and essential resources due to blocked access. Urban search and rescue teams in Florida will finish their operations by the end of today after nearly 1,000 missions. Recovery assistance is also being sent to the hard-hit areas of North Carolina and Tennessee. Hurricane Helene is now one of the deadliest storms in 50 years. It ranks third behind Hurricane Katrina and Hurricane Ian.
The Hezbollah terrorist group has a new acting leader. This comes after an Israeli airstrike killed their longtime chief, Hassan Nasrallah.
The new leader says he's ready for combat.
Acting leader Naim Qassem says if Israel decides to launch a ground offensive, the group's fighters are ready. Qassem's paid tribute to Hezbollah members who have died in the fighting. He suggested that the commanders who died have already been replaced now. Qassem will remain in the acting position until the group's leadership elects a new replacement. The man widely expected to take over the top post is a cousin of Nasrallah who oversees the group's political affairs. Israel, meanwhile, continued strikes over the weekend. The U.S. has advised both sides against escalating tensions, which could lead to a full-scale war. Joining us now to discuss U.S. involvement in the Middle East is Rebecca Grant. She is a national security analyst based in Washington, D.C. and vice president at the Lexington Institute. Rebecca, it's good to see you. Thank you for joining us. I want to get started with this piece of news. Today, the Pentagon did say that more U.S. forces have been put on to prepare to deploy orders. Now, it didn't exactly say what they might be doing in the Middle East, and currently there are about 40,000 U.S. troops there right now. Can you hazard a guess? What is the U.S. preparing for right now?
Yes, since Iran has vowed revenge, the number one priority for Central Command is force protection of the U.S. troops and sailors and airmen that are already there. And that is about 40,000 deployed. The USS Abraham Lincoln Strike Group with all the ships with her, the WASP, an amphibious ship, which is operating up in the Eastern Mediterranean, several Air Force fighter and attack squadrons. And then remember, we do have U.S. ground forces in Syria, in Iraq, and in some other locations. So additional deployments could be to strengthen protection of those forces and also get ready to put on a big missile defense in case we see another attack out of Iran like we did back in April.
And now talking a little more about those troops that are already in the Middle East, what are we seeing them doing right now?
Well, they have been very busy. The troops the sailors that are near the Red Sea area continue to turn back Houthi attacks. Sometimes that's missiles, air vehicles, unmanned surface vehicles. We also know that Central Command did a couple strikes up against ISIS resurgent forces carried out last week. But the number one activity right now is vigilance, watching to see what either Iran or the Iran-backed militias that we find from Yemen through Iraq and right, of course, through Hezbollah and Hamas, what is their force posture? So Space Forces, Air Forces, Navy, really watching to see if there are preparations for missile launches, either against Americans or against the nation of Israel as well.
Okay, you mentioned Iran there. I want to focus more on that right now. They have threatened retaliation against Israel for killing that former Hezbollah leader, Nasrallah. Do you see that retaliation actually coming? And if so, how do you think they're going to do this?
Such a question. And we've been waiting really since August because several leaders now from Hezbollah to Hamas and, of course, the killing of Nasrallah have been taken out in Israel's decapitation campaign against these terror groups. Iran backs all of these groups, in some cases, relationships that go back decades. But with all our U.S. military forces there, and of course, Israel, it's really bottling up Iran's tactical options. The big strike that they tried in April didn't work at all. And now we see Hezbollah, which still has plenty of missiles and weapons, but with their leadership in turmoil and new replacements, it's really, really hard for them, fortunately, to know how to strike back. So possibilities, I think we will see something at some point. And of course, Iran has that option to get its militias that it supports to try various types of attacks, either against Americans that are based there, or we've seen so many attacks, of course, coming in from these militias against Israel. I think Iran will try to do something, and I hope they're not successful.
All right, a lot of unrest right now in that area. And just today, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu, he did make a speech addressed to the Iranian people. Now let's play a clip.
The vast majority of Iranians know their regime doesn't care a whit about them. If it did care, if it cared about you, it would stop wasting billions of dollars on futile wars across the Middle East. It would start improving your lives. When Iran is finally free, and that moment will come a lot sooner than people think, everything will be different. Our two ancient peoples, the Jewish people and the Persian people, will finally be at peace. Our two countries, Israel and Iran, will be at peace.
Rebecca, you hear Netanyahu there. What is he doing with that speech?
3 quick points. One, he's really pointing at Iran's leadership. Second, we have reports that Israel still has the possibility of a ground incursion over the border into Lebanon to clear out some of the Hezbollah militia. And probably most of all, Netanyahu is now trying to frame that in the end, there can be, when Israel's security is restored, there can be a ceasefire, and then hopefully down the road, more diplomacy, such as the Abraham Accords, possibly a normalization with Saudi Arabia, that is the end goal that the U.S. and a lot of other countries in the world want to see. So Netanyahu is trying to frame that although he believes strong Israeli military action is essential, he is willing to look at a diplomatic solution after a time.
So based on what's happening in Lebanon right now and this new speech from Netanyahu, what is the general sentiment in Iran right now? I mean, does the Iranian government have the backing of its people?
I think that it does to some extent, but it's a terribly repressive regime. And, Netanyahu is right. The Iranian people deserve a lot better. Iran does have a new president that was just elected, so we can't rule them out at this point. But I hope that the military pressure on them is very strong. There have been some indications that Iran's new president may be a little bit more willing to negotiate. But as we know, it all comes down to what Ayatollah Khamenei wants, and it's his mind that's got to be changed. And Israel thinks the way to do that is with military pressure.
Okay, Rebecca, before we go, I want to talk a little bit more about the U.S.'s current role. President Biden, he's saying that he wants Israel to stop these raids into Lebanon. Another U.S. official said that these raids were precise and aimed specifically at Hezbollah's military capabilities. So what exactly is the U.S.'s role in this conflict going forward?
Well, Israel alone is carrying out the strikes on Hezbollah. They are very precise. Israel doesn't want to cause any more casualties. They want to go after that. But, really the big U.S. military role here is with those 40,000 forces deployed, aircraft carrier, all the destroyers, trying to keep a lid on a wider war, trying to impose some level of deterrence on Iran and trying to put stability on that. And we just have to thank the men and women in our U.S. military that are deployed out there in the Middle East. Some of them have been there a long time, and they're really trying to keep the lid on this hotspot in the midst of all these terrible and sometimes tragic problems.
All right, Rebecca Grant, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
Coming up, President Biden on Sunday approved over $560 million in defense support for Taiwan. It's the latest move by the U.S. to boost the island's military in the face of rising tensions with China. Find out more after this break.
No young person should ever have to worry about having a safe place to sleep at night, or a warm meal to eat, or whether anyone cares about them.
I grew up in poverty, and I actually became physically homeless right after I turned 16.
I didn't have anywhere to sleep, and I didn't really have friends or family that could support me.
To be homeless as a teen, I didn't ask for that.
1 in 10 young adults will experience a form of homelessness this year, and that's unacceptable. But the good news is there is an organization making a big difference, Covenant House.
For the young people who didn't ask to be put in unthinkable situations, Covenant House is there providing safety, hope, and a brighter future. Call or go online now. For a gift of only $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, you can provide hot meals, safe shelter, medical care, and love.
For over 50 years, Covenant House has been helping youth in crisis and giving them the support and tools they need to succeed in life.
Without the Covenant House, I honestly could not tell you where I would be today.
Call or go online right now to safeplacetosleep.org with your gift of just $19 a month. With your monthly donation, you'll receive this soft, comforting blanket as a reminder of the warmth and safety your gift will provide a young person tonight.
I would not be here today if it weren't for the kindness of strangers, people who donated to Covenant House so that they could support me when I couldn't support myself.
I have no words to express how Covenant House changed my life.
Your monthly gift is urgently needed to reach young people in communities like yours who didn't ask to be put in unthinkable situations.
Your support makes the work of Covenant House possible.
Call or go online to safeplacetosleep.org with your gift of just $19 a month.
Will radical lies determine your child's future, or will timeless truths? Fathom the Good equips children with wisdom against the world. Our homeschool curriculum teaches high schoolers to think critically. We provide primary texts, original content, reasoning tools, and mentoring videos to help them transform America. Teach your children to navigate the world's woke confusion. Teach them to fathom the good.
Welcome back. A boost for Taiwan. President Biden yesterday approved over $500 million in military support for the island. This comes after China fired multiple missiles into its western region over the weekend. The move put Taiwan on high alert, and it's keeping a close eye on these developments. Last week, Beijing fired a missile that can fly across continents into the Pacific Ocean. This happened while world leaders gathered at the United Nations in New York for their annual meeting. Taiwan pledged to bolster its defense capabilities, but also emphasized that it is not looking for conflict. The Chinese Communist Party sees Taiwan as part of China despite never having ruled it. The U.S. doesn't have formal diplomatic relations with Taiwan, but sells weapons to the island so that it can defend itself.
President Biden commented yesterday on a possible port workers' strike. He says he won't intervene if dock workers don't secure a new contract by the October 1st deadline. The potential strike could affect the East Coast and the Gulf of Mexico. Biden called the situation part of, quote, collective bargaining. The president says he doesn't believe in the Taft-Hartley Act. The Taft-Hartley Act allows presidential intervention in critical labor disputes. It applies when disputes threaten national security or public safety. The president can impose an 80-day cooling-off period in such cases. The strike would affect tens of thousands of dock workers. It could lead to shortages of chocolate, alcohol, and popular fruits, including bananas and cherries. An extended strike could also lead to shortages of certain cars.
With California emerging as a hub for artificial intelligence, Governor Gavin Newsom is taking on the challenge of deciding how it should be regulated. Newsom signed a pair of bills Sunday that aim to crack down on misuse of AI to generate sexual imagery of children. The bills passed with overwhelming bipartisan support. They close a legal loophole around imagery of child sexual abuse, making clear that child pornography is illegal even if it's AI generated. Earlier, prosecutors could only pursue cases in which AI child sexual abuse images depicted real people. Now, all such images would be felonies. But in another case of AI regulation, Newsom vetoed a bill that would have established safety measures for large AI models. He said the bill would have hurt the industry by creating rigid requirements. And apart from AI, Newsom signed a new law limiting companies from building warehouses close to homes, schools, and hospitals. It also requires warehouses to take steps to combat air pollution and to limit truck traffic to commercial roads. Moving on, the SpaceX Crew Dragon capsule has arrived at the International Space Station. It docked at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time yesterday. The mission aims to rescue astronauts Butch Wilmore and Sunny Williams. NASA astronaut Nick Hague and Russian cosmonaut Alexander Gorbanov were aboard. 2 empty seats were reserved for Wilmore and Williams for their return next year. Hague and Gorbanov launched Saturday from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. They reached their planned orbit without any issues, but SpaceX later reported a problem with the Falcon 9 rocket's upper portion. The company will pause Falcon 9 flights while investigating the anomaly.
In France, a public debate on immigration policies is ongoing, triggered by the murder of a young woman allegedly raped and murdered by an illegal immigrant. NTD's international correspondent David Vives attended a commemoration for the victim yesterday in Paris.
The body of Philippine, a 19-year-old student, was found buried in a Paris park on September 21st. The suspect, a 22-year-old Moroccan, was arrested in Switzerland a few days later.
The murder of Philippine in Paris has ignited a heated debate on immigration policies after it was revealed that the suspect, a Moroccan national previously convicted of rape, was due to deportation.
A judge has set the suspect free on September 3rd because the expulsion process was bogged down in administrative delays. This murder comes after several similar cases have been reported in the country in recent months. 500 people gathered in Paris on Sunday to mourn the young woman's death. The president of Nemesis Association, Alice Cordier, says it's alarming that many women in France don't feel safe.
Safety is a very serious matter in France. There's more and more of it. Women are going out armed in France. We've got pepper bombs, we've got little knives, we've got needles in our buns. Women have to choose which paths they're going to take to avoid the trouble.
Her association organizes protests about violence against women. They say illegal immigrants can pose more of a risk of violence for women. Official figures say only 7% of illegal migrants with deportation warrants are actually deported. For the Nemesis Association, France's laws are lenient regarding the condemnation of sexual aggression in perpetrators.
It's been a year since I was raped. It was November 11th, 2023. I've been trying to fight for a year to get answers from the government and to ask for action. There's nothing from them. So I really hope that with the new government, something can be done so they can make the deportation warrants actually work.
According to the Paris prefecture, 77% of rapes in Paris in 2023 were committed by foreigners. France's new government stated last week that it's open to toughening immigration laws. David Vives, NTD News, Paris.
Britain is now shutting down its last coal-fired power station. It's the first G7 nation to do so. This as part of plans to decarbonize their electricity grid.
That's right. This will end over 140 years of coal power in the UK, but has also renewed concerns about energy security as the nation shifts to rely on renewables. NTD's international correspondent Malcolm Hudson has more for us from London.
Britain's last remaining coal-fired power station shuts down on Monday. This ends over 140 years of coal power as a source of electricity in the UK, and it makes Britain the first G7 nation to take this step. The key driver behind this is the plan to cut CO2 emissions to meet climate targets. In 2015, Britain announced it would close all coal plants within the following decade. 12 have closed in the years since, with Ratcliffe-on-Soar Power Station being the final one to go. Dave Jones, electricity analyst at energy think tank Ember, said the whole of the developed world is working on this shift.
Yeah, well, coal is the dirtiest of all the fossil fuels from a carbon perspective and an air pollution perspective, so it was always the most sensible place to start. But there are still 2 fossil fuels left in oil and gas.
He said the UK has a plan on how to deal with this, with momentum building. Britain's target is to decarbonise the electricity sector by 2030. a move that will require a rapid ramp-up in renewable power such as wind and solar. The British government plans to set up a new state-owned energy investment company, GB Energy, to invest in offshore wind, nuclear and hydrogen power. Now, this shift from fossil fuels to renewables comes with its own challenges. The iconically variable British weather doesn't provide a steady source of wind and solar power, while Ratcliffe-on-Soar power station has been able to reliably power around 2 million homes. Recently released government figures show that British businesses are paying the highest electricity prices anywhere in the developed world. They're around 50% more expensive than France and Germany, and around 4 times the price seen in the United States. There is expected to be high demands for electricity in the future. As gas-powered cars are phased out in the UK, more people are expected to use electric vehicles. There will be a greater need to manage demand. People may be encouraged to charge their cars or use appliances when there are high levels of renewables available. It's been suggested this could be done through price mechanisms like energy rationing, with higher prices at peak times. Malcolm Hudson, NTD News, London.
Up next, the stage is set for tomorrow night's vice presidential debate in New York City. We'll speak with a political analyst on what to expect in tomorrow evening's showdown.
And a ballot measure in Sonoma County, California would end large-scale animal farms. Animal rights activists support the initiative, but the idea is drawing backlash from farmers. Stay tuned for that after this break.
They fill in for the president when they're called upon.
We need a leader who fights for the people who built this country.
A debate between candidates for second in command.
Let's chart that new way forward. Let's do it because we believe in the promise of America.
Watch the CBS News Vice Presidential Debate simulcast right here on NTD News, and catch our live pre- and post-debate coverage with Steve Lance and Tiffany Meyer on The Nation Decides 2024. Tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern on NTD News.
Hi, I'm Susan Lucci. I never thought about heart disease until I had my own heart event. I had heard many times that heart disease is the #1 killer. It went in one ear and out the other, frankly. I never had a health issue. I felt this slight pressure on my chest, just slight. But a few days later, while shopping at a boutique, that pressure returned, much stronger. By the time I got to the ER, the doctor decided to give me a CAT scan. He said, "I don't think you understand. You are on the verge of a heart attack." I had a 90% blockage in my main artery and a 75% blockage in the adjacent artery. I received 2 stents in my arteries, stents developed through research funded by the American Heart Association. Those stents saved my life. That's why I'm in front of you today, asking you to join me in supporting the American Heart Association by becoming a monthly donor. Call now or go to helpheart.org. For only $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, your support now can help save your life or the life of someone you love. With you by our side, together we'll keep fighting this battle. Give $19 a month with your credit card, and we'll send you this special t-shirt that you can wear to show that you are helping save lives. I'm so grateful to the American Heart Association. Their research helped save my life. Put yourself on your to-do list. It could be the most important thing you ever do. Please, listen to your heart. The only reason I'm here today is because I did. So please call the number on your screen or go to helpheart.org now. Join me as a monthly donor today and help save even more lives. Thank you.
Come to the Mathis Design Studio, the premier destination for designer furniture.
See the latest trends from top brands with heirloom quality pieces for every room in your house. Whether you're redecorating a single room or furnishing an entire home, we have the styles you'll love. Plus, enjoy fast, complimentary delivery. Visit us now for exclusive discounts and let us help make your dream home a reality for less than you ever imagined at the Mathis Design Studio.
After weeks of trading barbs in the media, the stage is now set for tomorrow night's vice presidential debate in New York City between Democratic candidate Minnesota Governor Tim Walz and Republican candidate Ohio Senator J.D. Vance. Joining us now to discuss is Brad Palumbo, co-founder and editor-in-chief of Based Politics, as well as a Steamboat Institute and Blankley Fellow. Brad, to jump right in, where do you see this debate being won or lost for either candidate?
Well, I think for both candidates, it will be about damage limitation. Nothing huge or consequential in the ideal world for each campaign. Nothing huge or consequential should come out of their candidate's mouth. They don't want a news cycle here, a scandal, or something that could drag down the candidacy. They just want a solid, strong performance with no major gaffes or controversies. That's what they'll be hoping for. Nothing gained, or maybe a little bit gained, but nothing too ventured, nothing too gambled or anything too risky. No going out on a limb or causing anything that could be an issue. They want this to go off with as little controversy as possible.
Yes, you're calling for defense over offense in this game. The format is no live audience and mics on at all times. Who do you think that benefits more?
I think that likely benefits Tim Walz a little bit more because J.D. Vance has a record of past comments that the Kamala Harris campaign has really tried to use against him, things he said on different podcast interviews over the years. And I would anticipate Tim Walz trying to nail him to the wall on some of these issues, things he said about women or about IVF or other things over the years. And if he's able to interject while JD is talking and kind of cut him off and force him to answer certain points, that could be beneficial as opposed to the mics being muted like they were in the general election debates so far. That, I think, could play into his hands. But on the flip side, it also could allow J.D. Vance to hold Tim Walz to account and say, all right, your candidate once said she wants to defund the police. What's her position now? On almost, I think, 11 issues and counting, major policy issues, Kamala Harris has flip-flopped, and she's still refusing to identify her current position on many other issues, even when asked by relatively friendly media outlets. So J.D. Vance might well have an opportunity to kind of hold their feet to the fire and say, what exactly are you running on? What exactly do you believe? Because vibes alone is not enough.
Indeed, it seems like the muted mics that Trump and Harris had will not be in effect here, and it could get interesting. Vance and Walz differ clearly on policy, but they do have some similarities in their background with this Midwestern appeal. How will each candidate attempt to appeal to the center and reach undecided voters?
Well, I think you'll see more of what Tim Walz has tried to do, which is brand J.D. Vance as weird and strange and off-putting, and brand himself as, an affable, friendly coach. But the truth is that a lot of Tim Walz's record as a governor is actually quite radical and is not particularly normal. It's a little bit weird on some issues as well. And he's underseen a lot of controversy during his tenure, during the Black Lives Matter riots, different issues related to gender transition policies, where he's done some really radical stuff. So I would also anticipate J.D. Vance trying to turn that back on him and saying, no, you're the weird one. So don't be surprised, because this is just where we're at in 2024 these days, if the vice presidential debate devolves into two guys yelling at each other like children, you're weird, no, you're weird, you're weirder. I actually think that's what could well happen on stage.
I guess we'll have to wait and see. One analyst said Trump and Harris were playing base politics, and this goes to your earlier point, with their choices for VP, implying that they weren't necessarily chosen to appeal to a wide segment of voters, but to rally and strengthen the candidate's base. So will that be on show tomorrow night?
Yeah, I think it will, and I think that's a completely accurate assessment. If Kamala had been trying to reach independents or moderates, she more likely would have gone with Josh Shapiro. And if she ends up losing his state of Pennsylvania, even by 0.5% or 1%, I think she'll regret that choice, because that state alone could prove consequential and deciding in the ultimate election count. And vice versa, J.D. Vance isn't somebody who adds a lot to the Trump ticket because he's popular with core MAGA voters, but he doesn't bring in new demographics, and he's unfortunately proven to have a fair bit of baggage. So Trump made that pick when he was feeling invincible because he was going up against a weak, frail, and clearly mentally declined Joe Biden. But now that Kamala has taken the reins and the race is tight again, if he was picking today, I do think Trump might consider picking differently.
Yeah, you had mentioned some of the, I wouldn't call them skeletons in the closet, but maybe some sound bites from the past that both candidates may be called to task on. So what are the tough questions that you see the candidates being forced to address for each of them?
Well, I think you can expect the Vance side to be grilled on abortion and women's rights issues and his past comments about childless women and those kinds of things, because that's what the critics are constantly circulating. New clips of J.D. Vance on some podcast from a few years ago with stripped of context, things that sound cringeworthy and kind of out of touch. And vice versa. I think with Tim Walz, you'll see them try to paint him as a radical, as a hardcore progressive who pushed for tampons in boys' bathrooms and supported criminal rioters and other things like that. So I think it will be interesting to see how the moderators play that role and whether they are clearly biased in the Democratic favor, which I think has been true for past debates, or whether they're actually able to hold both sides to account, which is what I would really like to see.
Yes, it seems like the rules do allow for the moderators at discretion to allow for a rebuttal, so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Brad, as we finish up, you're very active across social media platforms. How is the young vote thinking about this debate? Are they tuning in? Are they not really that interested? How would you say that the younger, maybe first and second time voter participants looking at the debate?
I would expect the actual number of young people who tune in to watch the full debate to be incredibly low. But if there are moments that go viral or turn into TikTok sounds or get traction online, those could prove consequential. So any one of them needs to realize that any 30 or 60-second soundbite or clip from that debate has the potential to reach 100 million people on TikTok if it hits a certain chord with a certain audience. But I wouldn't expect most young people to be turning on their television and actually sitting down to watch the debate, only the political junkies like myself. But those clips and that viral potential is something they always need to be on guard about, because that really can happen, and not always in a good way.
Indeed, the changing media consumption patterns of the younger generation. Brad Palumbo, co-founder, editor-in-chief of Base Politics and a Steamboat Institute Blankley Fellow. Really appreciate your insights in joining us on Newsroom.
Thanks.
Moving on now, the White House is holding a press briefing live. Let's tune in.
1-800-621-3362, registering on disasterassistance.gov, or by filling out an application on your mobile device through the FEMA app. And that brings me to our response. Under President Biden and Vice President Harris's leadership, we are providing urgent and extensive federal support for the ongoing response and recovery efforts to Hurricane Helene. Over the weekend, at the President's direction, FEMA Administrator Deanne Criswell traveled to Florida on Saturday, to Georgia on Sunday, and today she is in North Carolina, accompanying Governor Cooper in surveying impacts to the affected communities in western North Carolina. The President has asked Deanne Criswell to remain in Asheville, North Carolina, given how acute the situation is on the ground there, and he will receive an update from her this afternoon and from Governor Cooper, in addition to the press conference that the administrator and the governor will hold today. Also, as the President said earlier today, he is committed to traveling to impacted areas later this week, as soon as his presence will not disrupt vital emergency response operations. So, I want to walk you through what happens as we're facing a hurricane predicted to have the kind of impacts that Helene has had. First of all, what we do before a storm. As Helene was developing in the Gulf, the President directed FEMA to pre-position specialized capabilities across the region, including deploying incident management assistance teams to Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, and North Carolina. These teams support our state partners in planning, in logistics, and in conducting their emergency response operations. This included pre-positioning a number of search and rescue teams, federal search and rescue teams in addition to the state and local teams, temporary power teams, generators, and health and medical assessment teams. These efforts focused on the Big Bend area of Florida, saved lives in the state, and they prepared us to respond elsewhere in the region. Now, if we know anything about storms, and we've learned a lot in our years in service together, it's that Mother Nature has a mind of her own. As good as our technologies are, as good as our National Hurricane Center is, it's just a forecast. And when a storm hits, we have to adapt and respond in real time, just as the storm has the effects in real time that it is having, and then there are knock-on effects of that storm, such as flooding. As we evaluated impacts from the storm, we shifted into the post-landfall phase of our process, and we began to surge capacity to where it was needed the most. As of today, we have more than 3,500 federal response personnel deployed and supporting response efforts across the region, including more than 1,000 personnel from FEMA. Search and rescue efforts by state, local, and federal partners are ongoing, and nearly 600 additional personnel will arrive in the region in the coming days, increasing the total number of urban search and rescue personnel to over 1,250. And as search and rescue missions in other states wind down, these teams are focusing on the areas of greatest need, including North Carolina, where our federal teams continue to support state and local teams with rescues where the devastation is most acute. Also, at the President's direction, the Department of Defense has activated additional helicopters to aid in search and rescue operations and has provided dozens of high-water vehicles to get into areas that it's difficult to access. The National Guard, in their state capacity, is also supporting these efforts. National Guardsmen and women from 8 additional states are supporting North Carolina under existing emergency mutual assistance compacts, known as EMACs, with more than 700 personnel, helicopters, a cargo plane, and rescue vehicles to help with road clearance, provision of commodities, transportation, and search and rescue. This is the best of America. We have National Guard coming in as far as from Connecticut, Ohio, and New York, who are deploying to North Carolina to support their fellow citizens in need. In addition, about 200 medical responders are also stationed in Florida, Alabama, and North Carolina, along with medical equipment and supplies, to ensure the continued healthcare delivery that is required following the landfall of Hurricane Helene. And the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services declared a public health emergency for Florida, North Carolina, and Georgia, which gives health providers and suppliers greater flexibility in meeting emergency health needs of Medicare and Medicaid beneficiaries. In order for communities to begin functioning again, we all know it's critical to have power restored. And I want to tell you about what we're doing on this front, because that is truly the fundamental lifeline sector. As of this morning, about 2 million people are still without power across the impacted states. At least 50,000 personnel from 31 states and DC and Canada are responding to power outages throughout the region via established mutual assistance agreements between utilities, and working around the clock throughout parts of Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, and South Carolina to restore power to those communities that can receive it, where the infrastructure can take power on the lines. FEMA and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers are also making available generators of many different sizes that are ready to be deployed upon the request of any state. And as power is being restored throughout parts of Florida and Georgia, power crews are being moved into other states to assist with additional restoration efforts. We see power outage numbers improving where restoration teams are able to gain access to communities and the debris is cleared. Once we get power restored, we can then get a lot of other things working again. Utilities, water utilities in particular, communication systems, medical and healthcare facilities are those capabilities that depend, of course, on a source of power supply to function. We're also very focused on restoring communications capabilities. FEMA, the FCC, and private telecommunications providers are working together to help restore temporary communications as quickly as possible by establishing temporary cell sites and allowing for roaming where possible, where a resident can connect to any network available even if they aren't subscribed to that network. Today, FEMA will install 30 Starlink receivers in western North Carolina to provide immediate connectivity for those in greatest need. We're also very focused on how we reach survivors at their point of need. This has been a lesson we have learned from the beginning of President Biden's presidency, that those who most need the help have the hardest time accessing that help. And he has directed us to work to evolve FEMA practices so we can really get to those who need us the most. In states that have requested and have received major disaster declarations, FEMA is expediting the delivery of its Serious Needs Assistance, which is an immediate $750 direct payment to eligible households to allow them to pay for essential items like food, baby formula, water, medications, and other emergency supplies. This is not the full extent of FEMA assistance to individuals, but it's the first element of it that becomes immediately available with a major disaster declaration. And it gets people cash when they're absolutely desperate for it. In addition, survivors who register for the FEMA Individual Assistance Program will be eligible to receive assistance to help repair their homes, cars, and other personal property in conjunction with their own insurance policies. FEMA is working, as it always does, to open disaster recovery centers in impacted communities. What's important about these centers is they aggregate federal support in one place. It used to be the case that survivors had to go to multiple different departments and agencies to find out what kind of help they could get access to. What we do is we put everyone together either in a standing building that survived the natural disaster or in a trailer if that's necessary. For example, we've opened 3 disaster recovery centers today in Manatee County, Sarasota County, and Hillsborough County, Florida. If survivors cannot get to such a facility, and we think that will likely be the place in a place like Asheville and its surrounding areas, we send people door to door. FEMA literally goes knocking with an iPad in hand so they can help people register for the assistance they need because they may not have power, their cell phone may have run out, and they need someone to help them get registered quickly. In North Carolina, we're focused right now on clearing roads and removing debris, restoring communications and power, and ensuring access to health care and the continued flow of commodities and food, commodities like food and water, to where they're most needed. Today, we've heard they've reopened 220 roads, which will help enable responders and critical commodities to begin moving via ground transportation. While FEMA has been at the forefront of the response, and it's very meaningful to have them on the ground, they serve as the coordinator of the orchestra of a wide-ranging federal response, and that's something a lot of people don't understand. What FEMA does is it mission assigns, that's the term of art, quote, mission assigns, roles and responsibilities across our government in the wake of a disaster. And so what they do is coordinate the identification of and delivery of those resources when they're needed and where they're needed. I want to go through some of what other departments and agencies are doing so you can hear the full scope of the federal response, which gives more clarity than just saying FEMA is doing this. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers deployed power restoration teams, including in Buncombe County, North Carolina, where Asheville is located, for temporary emergency power, debris removal, and infrastructure assessment, including for dams throughout the region. The Department of Defense has mobilized 22 helicopters in support to response in western North Carolina. Staged at Fort Liberty in North Carolina, there are multiple helicopters available to support air bridge operations to move personnel and necessary supplies and equipment into the disaster area. 4 helicopters from DoD are actively supporting the urgent search and rescue operations that are ongoing in western North Carolina. The other 18 are helping to move response personnel and deliver critical commodities and support into remote and isolated communities that are not accessible by road right now. DoD has also made available, as I mentioned, 30 high-water vehicles available for search and rescue and has set up 5 incident support bases across the region to continue providing support to those who need it in the surrounding areas. The U.S. Coast Guard has thousands of personnel working on response efforts and is conducting post-storm assessments to support the rapid reopening of impacted ports in Florida. The U.S. Department of Energy has responders deployed across the region, primarily in the state emergency operations centers. While I noted that power restoration numbers are trending in the right direction, it's important to remember that these will be complex multi-day efforts in many locations due to the extent of damage and the ongoing access issues. Utilities are facing widespread flooding and debris that is impeding access to damaged infrastructure. And one of the things we've learned in prior incidents like this is it's really important to set public expectations about when they can anticipate that power will return so that they take the necessary steps to be safe and to secure additional support, for example, moving into a shelter if power isn't going to come on for some time where they live. The U.S. Department of Agriculture's Farm Service Agency, a very important player in this space in rural areas, has deployed personnel to the impacted region to extend much-needed emergency credit to farmers and agriculture producers who lost crops and livestock across all the impacted states, but in particular in the Big Bend region of Florida and in southern Georgia. The Environmental Protection Agency has personnel on the ground who are offering technical assistance and guidance on water systems, which have been significantly damaged in a number of locations, on debris management, and on maintaining critical public health and environmental protections as storm impacts are assessed. The U.S. Small Business Administration has also deployed more than 50 personnel to support survivors and small businesses as they recover from the hurricane. So, that's a sense for you of the range of capabilities that surge when we say we're doing everything we can to help impacted communities. And more will follow as we know more about the impacts. We honestly don't know the full extent of the damage. It probably will take several more days as communities begin to be opened up by the debris clearance on the roads, and we can get in and really understand what's happened to them. Unfortunately, we know that the first information we receive is often wrong in the wake of a disaster, and that the early days are brutally hard for the people who are in the most heavily impacted communities.
So there we have that press briefing at the White House. A lot of talk there about the damage that Hurricane Helene has done. A summary there really of what FEMA is doing right now to help Americans.
Yeah, indeed. It seems like there are two different levels, one where FEMA is leading point and the other where the state is taking assistance from FEMA, but the state is running point. And it looks like FEMA has fully taken over the disasters in Florida and North Carolina and is providing support in about 5 to 6 other states.
That's right, Carrie. Key point is there is help out there for Americans if they need it. Moving on now, coming up, Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell. He is sharing his thoughts on the economic outlook. Less than 2 weeks since the central bank slashed interest rates, this for the first time in years. That and more after this break.
When I drink it, the first thing was I feel the warmth in my tummy. It's kind of like gently radiating out, you know, a kind of a very comforting warmth. And it was really good, actually. I felt much better. I did feel, actually, an effect. And I find that it is actually better when I take it regularly.
It's actually steamed and dried 9 times. And so it's really, the essence is really extracted.
Then the second time, I tried it really like on an empty stomach and just 2 teaspoons of it, and over a few times. And wow, that was a big difference, because suddenly I could feel, wow, I was very good energized. I didn't have to eat. I could work outside in the garden for a couple of hours, and I still felt very well. And I was impressed by that. So I think it's a good product.
I'm Ilka. I live with my daughter and with my grandchildren. There's a sense of comfort that comes with eating a good meal. We try to make the most, of what we have. We have rent to pay, and then there are lights and there are gas. And while my daughter and I both work, it still just doesn't seem like there's enough to go around sometimes.
Every day, millions of our neighbors face hunger, including 1 in 5 children, and food costs keep rising. Please call or go online right now to join Feeding America with your gift of just $19 a month, only 63 cents a day. Your monthly support can fill plates with nutritious food for families across the country and in your community, thanks to a nationwide network of food banks and volunteers.
If you were over and playing with us, you were part of our family and you were going to eat. A real cook can take nothing and make something.
No one should ever have to wonder if they will have enough to eat, and our neighbors are working hard to feed their families every day. Call or go online now. Visit helpfeedingamerica.org and give $19 a month. 98% of donations go directly to help millions of people facing hunger from coast to coast and in your own community. Use your credit card and you'll get this exclusive canvas grocery bag as a thank you for joining hands with people across America to help end hunger.
Some of the lessons that I hope that my family will take, it is important to treat people the way that you want to be treated. I have carried on the tradition of loving people through food.
Please call right now or go online to make a monthly gift at helpfeedingamerica.org. Your support helps our neighbors bring food home to their families.
Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Fiona G.
I'm Carrie Dunst.
Kamala Harris cuts her trip in Nevada short to return to Washington, D.C. to get updates on Hurricane Helene.
Meanwhile, former President Trump reacts to the deadly hurricane at Valdosta, Georgia.
Over 100 people are dead after Hurricane Helene sweeps through multiple states. Almost 3 million homes are still without power.
President Biden says he won't intervene if dock workers strike. What shortages could occur if both sides can't come to an agreement?
The man charged in a second assassination attempt on former President Trump is in court today. What details are emerging about his alleged plot?
Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell is sharing his thoughts on the economy less than 2 weeks after the central bank slashed its interest rates for the first time in years.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu addresses the Iranian people directly as the Israeli-Lebanon conflict continues. We'll break that down.
An annual event in London honors a medieval rite dating back to the 12th century. A renowned British actor herds sheep as part of the tradition. More in just a moment here on NTD News.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
It's been about 2 weeks now since the U.S. Central Bank entered its first easing cycle in years, Carrie. This Federal Reserve cut interest rates by 0.5 point.
That's right. Fed Chair Jerome Powell is now sharing his thoughts on the outlook for the economy. He gave an address today at the National Association for Business Economics Conference in Nashville.
For much of the past 3 years, inflation ran well above our goal, and the labor market was extremely tight. Appropriately, our focus was on bringing down inflation. By keeping monetary policy restrictive, we helped restore the balance between overall supply and demand in the economy. That patient approach has paid dividends. Inflation is now much closer to our 2% objective. Today, we see the risks to achieving our employment and inflation goals as roughly in balance.
Powell noted 2 positive signs in the economy since the rate cut, which has removed some downside risk. First, the revised GDP and GDI numbers and the estimated rise in disposable income.
Powell's speech came on the heels of the association's new survey. 39% of professionals surveyed cited a hypothetical monetary policy mistake by the central bank as the greatest downside risk to the U.S. economy over the next year. The next biggest risks were the presidential election and the conflicts in Ukraine and the Middle East. Moving on, Vice President Kamala Harris skips 2 campaign stops in Nevada to go back to Washington, D.C. for briefings on Hurricane Helene.
Yes, that's right. Her campaign also reports $55 million raised at fundraising events in California. NTD's Jason Blair brings us the latest.
Kamala Harris was scheduled to make 2 more stops in Nevada on Monday following a Sunday rally in Las Vegas. Instead, she cut things short and she flew out Monday morning back to Washington. A White House official said she'll be briefed at FEMA headquarters on Hurricane Helene. Helene has been causing widespread devastation to multiple states in the southeast. At least 95 people have been killed, millions are without power, and many trapped in floodwaters. On Sunday, Harris posted a statement on X saying, "Our administration will continue to stay in constant contact with state and local officials to ensure communities have the support and resources they need." A White House official said that Harris plans to visit the affected areas as soon as possible without disrupting energy response operations. Over the weekend, Harris attended fundraising events in San Francisco and Los Angeles. Her campaign reports a total of $55 million raised, with $27 million in San Francisco and $28 million in LA. Tickets to the San Francisco fundraiser, held at the Palace of Fine Arts, reportedly ranged from $500 to $2,800. And tickets for the LA fundraiser at the city's downtown JW Marriott Hotel ranged from $500 to $1 million. Reporting in Washington, D.C., Jason Blair, NTD News.
And meanwhile, former President Trump just reacted to the deadly hurricane as well. He was in Valdosta, Georgia, just moments ago.
Yeah, the city was hard hit by Hurricane Helene. At least 3 people were killed there. The man charged with attempting to assassinate former President Trump in Florida pleaded not guilty in federal court today. Ryan Ruth faces 5 charges, including the assassination attempt, gun law violations, and an assault on a federal officer. He's been ordered to remain in jail until trial. Prosecutors allege Ruth planned to kill Trump as he golfed in West Palm Beach on September 15th. Ruth criticized Trump in a self-published book. He also allegedly dropped off a letter with someone months earlier referencing the assassination attempt on Trump.
Former President Trump rallied in Erie, Pennsylvania yesterday. NTD's Daniel Monahan reports on the campaign stop, which was the Republican nominee's 4th trip to the hotly contested state in a month.
Former President Trump criticized Vice President Harris on immigration.
Already hundreds of people have been murdered because of her action at the border, and thousands more will follow in rapid succession. She should be impeached and prosecuted for her actions.
Trump cited data provided recently to Congress by ICE. The data stated that over 13,000 migrants convicted of homicide are not currently in ICE detention. Trump accused Harris of letting them in. NBC reported that Homeland Security officials have since said the data actually refers to migrants who entered the country over several decades, including during the Trump administration, and that many of them are actually detained by other state and federal agencies. Trump told supporters he will be back in Pennsylvania next weekend. Trump will hold another campaign event in Butler, the site of last July's assassination attempt against him.
We're going back to Butler. You're going to be there. We're going back.
The former president says he's looking forward to the rally.
We have a lot of people coming, and I really believe that will be the safest place on earth.
Trump suffered a wound to his ear when he was shot in mid-sentence during an attempt on his life.
I think I'll start the speech by saying, as I was saying,
Harris's campaign raised $55 million at 2 California fundraisers over the weekend. A Saturday event at San Francisco's Palace of Fine Arts raised $27 million. Former Speaker Nancy Pelosi spoke, and Andra Day performed. A Sunday fundraiser at the JW Marriott in LA raised $28 million. Guests included Stevie Wonder, Demi Lovato, and Jessica Alba. Halle Bailey and Alanis Morissette performed. Current Real Clear polling averages show Harris leading Trump by 2 points. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
Over 400,000 people have either voted early in person or have returned their mail ballots already. Now, this split between these 2 voting methods is nearly equal.
Yes, this data comes from the University of Florida's Election Lab tracking website.
Now, moving on, over 110 people are dead after Hurricane Helene swept through multiple states.
That's right. The number might keep rising, and some are still unaccounted for. Here's the latest on the situation.
Hurricane Helene has already claimed the lives of over 90 people. Search and rescue missions are underway. North and South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, Tennessee, and Virginia are affected. Financial damages could go up to $100 billion, according to estimates. Georgia Governor Brian Kemp spoke on the situation, despite many cell phone towers being down, affecting the quality of the signal.
This storm literally spared no one. It took one of our finest and a firefighter, Leon Davis, who was with the Blackshear Fire Department Assistant Chief while responding to a call.
Helene also slammed Florida's Gulf Coast, destroying homes and triggering days of heavy rain. It washed out roads, decimated neighborhoods, and left many communities without water and basic necessities.
We worked really hard with the Department of Transportation to clear the roads. And so as of now, we've done, tens of thousands of miles have been cleared.
Helene left around 2.7 million people throughout the South without power. The White House says President Biden plans to visit affected areas this week. That's once he can do so without disrupting emergency services. On Monday afternoon, former President Trump tweeted, "We are now heading to Georgia in order to pay my respects and bring lots of relief material."
President Biden said today that the federal government will help storm survivors for as long as possible. He also said that he hopes to visit the affected areas on Wednesday or Thursday.
That's right, but only if those areas can handle the logistics and security that come with a presidential visit as they continue the recovery after the storm.
Urge everyone returning to their communities and home to listen to the local officials and follow all safety instructions. Take this seriously. Please be safe. Your nation has your back, and the Biden-Harris administration will be there until the job is done.
Coming up, more than 30 women say that they were dismissed from the FBI training academy because of their sex. The Justice Department agrees to settle their discrimination lawsuit.
Thousands of Verizon customers were affected by a large outage today. Many said their phones displayed, quote, SOS mode intermittently. That and more after this break.
This is such a gentle painting, so beautifully portrayed.
A group of people reading together in this simple, everyday-looking living room. A young girl reading along with an adult, a grandparent sitting in the lotus position, a businessman in his typical suit.
You see all those people, they look like they have quietly settled down there. And you as a viewer, it looks like you've just stepped in the door.
You can't see what it is they're reading, so you're a little bit curious and you're kind of invited to walk in.
This harmonious feeling is not by accident. It is the very subject of the work. The book they are reading is the main text of Falun Gong, which is an ancient Chinese spiritual discipline in the Buddhist tradition. At the core of Falun Gong are the values of truthfulness, compassion, and forbearance. Unfortunately, the practice is banned in China, where the artist resides. Thousands have been killed for their faith. Golden energy blooms into the room as a result of their steadfast faith. The painting on the back wall reminds us of this work's title, Plum Blossoms in a Muddy World.
It's also a metaphor for the practitioners that are sitting in the room as plum blossoms.
They signify perseverance and hope that all brutal winters end and life is renewed once again.
It's a magical painting.
The 7th NTD International Piano Competition will take place at the Kaufman Music Center in New York City. Pianists from around the world will come together to revive the great piano masterpieces. Join us on this uplifting journey. The semifinals, finals, and the winner's concert will be open to audiences and live streamed from October 17th to the 19th. Get tickets now at 212-501-3330.
Adopting you was the best decision in our life. And I am so proud to call you my son.
We designed Native Path products to restore essential nutrients missing from the modern diet. This is what being on the path is all about. We're more than a health and wellness brand, we're a community.
Minnesota Governor Tim Walz and Ohio Senator J.D. Vance face off in their first and only vice presidential debate tomorrow. It's hosted by CBS News and will begin at 9 p.m. in New York. Moderators will be CBS anchor Norah O'Donnell and Face the Nation host Margaret Brennan. The debate will last 90 minutes. There will be no live audience or opening statements. Each candidate has 2 minutes to respond to questions, followed by a 2-minute rebuttal, and then an optional 1-minute response. Both will be giving closing statements. Vance won the coin toss and he will go last. Pre-written notes and props are prohibited, but candidates may use pen and paper. CBS can also mute the microphones if needed, and staffers cannot interact with their candidates during breaks. NTD will have in-depth analysis and a lot more prepared for you during pre- and post-debate. So join us on The Nation Decides 2024, presented by Steve Lance and Tiffany Meyer. Watch it tomorrow, October 1st at 8 p.m. Eastern. Employees at the Department of Veteran Affairs improperly accessed medical records for both vice presidential nominees. About 2 months ago, an employee at the VA Inspector General's office reached out to Senator J.D. Vance to alert him of the breach. And a Harris campaign spokesperson said it was informed about a breach of Minnesota Governor Tim Walz's records. The Washington Post reports at least a dozen employees accessed the files. An investigation is now underway. Vance spent 4 years in the Marines and served in Iraq as a combat correspondent. Walz served 24 years in the National Guard before retiring. The Department of Justice is suing Alabama. The lawsuit follows the state's removal of more than 3,000 names from the eligible voter list for the upcoming election. The voter purge violates a 90-day period before an election. During that time, officials cannot systematically remove people from the list of voters. Alabama's Secretary of State says that he removed the names because they were allegedly non-citizens, but he also acknowledges that some may have become naturalized citizens and may have been eligible to vote. More than 700 people removed from the list have since re-registered successfully. The Justice Department says all of the people should be returned to the list so that they can vote unimpeded on Election Day.
Residents in Sonoma County will vote on a ballot measure in November that would end large-scale animal farms. Animal rights activists support the initiative, but the idea is also drawing backlash from farmers and others in the community. NTD's Andrew Thomas has the latest.
This stretch of Northern California is renowned for its vineyards, but in Sonoma County, the future of the region's farm animals is causing controversy. A new proposal would require the county to phase out industrial farms.
Measure J is a citizen-led ballot measure that aims to phase out and end factory farming in Sonoma County, and it does so using an EPA term called concentrated animal feeding operations.
Proponents say the move is about the humane treatment of animals.
It's hard to fathom what it would be like being one of those animals that has never even seen the color of the sky or felt the breeze, amongst them. So yeah, I think I just feel devastated, but I also know that I can do something about it.
Christina Garfinkel is the lead organizer of the Coalition to End Factory Farming. She objects to what she believes is the mistreatment of farm animals.
I don't believe any animals should be confined. So when I see them confined in any way, it's rough. And when I see so many animals that are abused, again, for no reason other than people like the way it tastes.
But at Weber Family Farms in Petaluma, owner Mike Weber says his animals benefit from comprehensive oversight.
California Department of Food and Ag comes out and inspects. Our organic certifiers, they come out and inspect. Our supermarkets come out and inspect. We have multiple layers of protections for our animals.
Critics of Measure J say the initiative is a misguided effort that could harm egg farming and dairies in the county. Weber adds that he believes Measure J is part of a larger ideological effort.
It's an activist group of vegans who want us to have a vegan diet, want to start here in Sonoma County, and put us out of business.
Voters will decide on Measure J November 5th. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
The Biden administration said today that it is increasing asylum restrictions at the southern border.
Yes, the announcement comes as Vice President Kamala Harris attempts to take a tougher stance on illegal immigration. Previously, U.S. authorities could restrict asylum requests when official border crossing reached 2,500 daily. The version rolled out today would require the daily numbers to be below 1,500 for a month before the restrictions can be lifted.
Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump has criticized the Biden-Harris administration for its immigration policies. Since Biden took office, Customs and Border Protection has encountered more than 9.5 million individuals nationwide. The CBP has reported more than 7.8 million encounters at the southern border during his administration. Hundreds of thousands of Medicare patients across the U.S. will be seeing lower prices on dozens of prescription drugs. Today, the Biden administration announced Medicare Part B. Enrollees will pay less for 54 prescription drugs. Many of those drugs are used to treat cancer, osteoporosis, pneumonia, and other conditions. The cuts are possible through a provision in the Inflation Reduction Act, making drug companies pay rebates if they raise Medicare prices faster than the rate of inflation. Patients will start seeing the price drops this week. Tomorrow, Louisiana will become the first state in the nation to categorize two widely used abortion pills as controlled substances. The two drugs in question are mifepristone and misoprostol. The mifepristone is typically taken along with misoprostol to terminate an early pregnancy. Both drugs can be obtained with a prescription in Louisiana, but the state has reclassified them as Schedule 4 drugs, meaning that they pose a low risk for abuse and dependence. Opponents fear the reclassification could cause delays in accessing the drug, while supporters argue the new law will help prevent coerced abortions. In June, the Supreme Court unanimously preserved access to the drug after abortion opponents had argued that the FDA overlooked serious safety problems when making these drugs easier to obtain.
The Department of Justice
has agreed to pay $22.6 million to settle a discrimination lawsuit. More than 30 women say they were wrongly dismissed from the FBI training academy because of their sex. Some of the plaintiffs also allege that they were subjected to sexual harassment and sexist comments. The proposed settlement would allow eligible class members to seek reinstatement to the agent training program. The FBI would also be required to hire outside experts to ensure that its evaluation process is fair. According to the Bureau, less than a quarter of special agents are women. If a federal judge approves the settlement, it would rank among the biggest payouts in the history of the FBI.
President Biden commented yesterday on a possible port workers strike. He says he won't intervene if dock workers don't secure a new contract by the October 1st deadline. The potential strike could affect the East Coast and Gulf of Mexico. Biden called the situation part of collective bargaining. The president says he doesn't believe in Taft-Hartley. The Taft-Hartley Act allows presidential intervention in a critical labor dispute. It applies when disputes will threaten national security or public safety. The president can impose an 80-day cooling-off period in such cases. The strike would affect tens of thousands of dock workers and could lead to shortages of chocolate, alcohol, and popular fruit such as bananas and cherries. If the strike were to go on long-term, it could also lead to shortages of certain cars.
A fire at a chemical plant in Georgia forced 17,000 residents to evacuate. The blaze in Conyers also led to the closure of a major highway. The incident began at around 5:30 a.m. yesterday when a sprinkler malfunctioned. It reacted with chemicals, creating a large plume of smoke. You could see the smoke from miles away, as you can see in that footage right there. The Rockdale County Fire Department said the fire was initially contained. However, it reignited around noon, prompting more evacuations. Because of increasing concerns around air quality, residents were asked to shelter in place until midnight. Environmental officials are assessing potential hazards. They're warning of possible toxic exposure from the smoke. Lawyers said today that settlement checks from Norfolk Southern's 2023 derailment could be delayed up to 2 years due to a recent appeal. The appeal challenges a federal judge's decision to approve the $600 million deal. Many residents of East Palestine, Ohio, expressed outrage over the weekend about the appeal. They're upset because it will delay payments they were relying on to recover from the toxic train crash. The crash released hazardous chemicals into their community. Some had planned to use the money to relocate. The first checks were supposed to go out by the end of the year, but this won't happen because the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals will first have to address concerns in the case. The lawyers estimate that payments will be delayed at least 6 to 12 months while the court reviews the appeal. The delay could be even longer if the case goes to the U.S. Supreme Court.
One of the largest oil and gas consolidation deals in the U.S. is one step closer to closing. The FTC has cleared Chevron's $53 billion purchase of Hess Corporation. As part of the order, Hess CEO John Hess has been barred from serving on Chevron's board. The Federal Trade Commission says this was over Hess's alleged communication with members of the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries. The FTC alleges Hess encouraged high-level representation of the group. Hess's board believes the claims are meritless. Chevron and Hess have one more legal hurdle, a challenge brought on by Hess partners in Guyana, joint venture ExxonMobil and CNOOC Limited. That decision is expected sometime next year. Additional oversight for GM's self-driving car unit, Cruise. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration says GM will have to pay $1.5 million fine for failing to disclose details about a serious crash that involved a pedestrian in October of last year. Under the settlement, Cruise will also have to submit an updated action plan to improve serious accident reporting to the NHTSA. Cruise will be under enhanced reporting requirements for the next 2 years. The self-driving vehicle hit a pedestrian in San Francisco after she was hit by another driver and dragged. The Justice Department and Securities and Exchange Commission are also investigating the crash. A Missouri mother and her lawyers will try to convince a jury this week that Abbott, Reckitt, Meade Johnson, and St. Louis Children's Hospital are responsible for her premature son's severe intestinal illness. She said he contracted the illness from the company's formulas after being born at the hospital. The trial in St. Louis, Missouri State Court begins with jury selection today. This case is part of a larger legal battle that has already led to verdicts of $60 million against Reckitt. Abbott has been ordered to pay $495 million. Nearly 1,000 similar cases are still ongoing nationwide. Plaintiffs said that cow's milk-based formula increases the risk of necrotizing enterocolitis in premature babies. The condition has an estimated fatality rate of more than 20%. They also said the companies failed to warn about the risk. Both companies said the lawsuit claims are not supported by the evidence and that their products are essential for premature babies.
Thousands of Verizon users were without cell phone service today following a widespread outage. More than 104,000 users across the U.S. reported having little to no service Monday morning. That's according to Down Detector, which tracks user reports of internet disruptions. The outage reportedly impacted a large swath of the Midwest, along with several major cities, including Atlanta, Chicago, Denver, Los Angeles, New York, and Phoenix. Many users said their cell phones were intermittently displaying SOS mode, leaving them unable to place calls or send or receive text messages. Verizon posted on social media that it was aware of an issue impacting service and said that it is working quickly to resolve it. The SpaceX Crew Dragon capsule has arrived at the International Space Station. It docked at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time yesterday. The mission aims to rescue astronauts Butch Wilmore and Sunny Williams. NASA astronaut Nick Hague and Russian cosmonaut Alexander Gorbanov were aboard. 2 empty seats are reserved for Wilmore and Williams for their return next year. Hague and Gorbanov launched Saturday from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, and they reached their orbit planned without any issues. But SpaceX later reported a problem with the Falcon 9 rocket's upper portion. The company will pause Falcon 9 flights while investigating the anomaly. When we come back, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu addresses the Iranian people directly as the Israeli-Lebanon conflict continues. We'll break it down.
In France, the brutal murder of a 19-year-old girl has reignited a debate on immigration policies. Police arrested a suspect who was due for deportation but released from detention earlier this month. We'll have that and more after this break.
Say goodbye to harsh, bitter coffee and hello to a delicious, smooth brew. With specialty quality beans, expertly roasted in-house, you'll taste the difference with every sip. Fermented with a blend of 50 enzymes, Days Coffee delivers a rich brew like no other. Made with the highest grade specialty beans available, you're sure to taste the difference. Elevate your morning with Days Enzyme Fermented Coffee.
Tired of scrolling Netflix? Trying to find something that's worth watching? Want to skip the censorship in mainstream media? Well, now you can with Epic TV. New exclusive content every day with over 100 never-before-seen movies, films, and documentaries. Available and streaming now at your fingertips. For a limited time now, you can get 60% off Epic TV by subscribing or upgrading to a yearly plan. Plus, get an additional $10 credit to rent featured movies on Epic Cinema today. Skip mainstream narratives and find quality family entertainment from the comfort of your very own home. Say no to big tech and subscribe to Epic TV.
The Kindness is Cool Video Awards are back for their second year. Record and nominate acts of kindness, both big and small, from individuals, families, and communities. Submit your videos on ganjingworld.com with the hashtag KindnessIsCool. Win a $10,000 grand prize and be featured on a New York Times Square billboard. Visit ganjingworld.com and start sharing today. Kindness is cool.
Do you know that Cars for Compassion is the best way to donate your car? Through this non-profit program, you can not only help us keep bringing the world independent and daringly truthful journalism, but also significantly impact the life of somebody who needs a vehicle. The Epoch Times fights misinformation and big tech censorship by being independent and unbound to advertisers. Every single contribution to Cars for Compassion is a powerful endorsement of our unwavering mission. All you have to do is go to carsforcompassion.org and let us know about your car, and we'll schedule a pickup time and email you a tax-deductible receipt. To do this, just click the link below, support truth, compassion, and hope. Donate your car right now at www.carsforcompassion.org.
Welcome back. The Hezbollah terrorist group has a new acting leader. This comes after an Israeli airstrike killed their longtime chief Hassan Nasrallah. The new leader says that he is ready for combat.
Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu addressed the situation. He made the following remarks.
The vast majority of Iranians know their regime doesn't care a whit about them. If it did care, if it cared about you, it would stop wasting billions of dollars on futile wars across the Middle East. It would start improving your lives. When Iran is finally free, and that moment will come a lot sooner than people think, everything will be different. Our two ancient peoples, the Jewish people and the Persian people, will finally be at peace. Our two countries, Israel and Iran, will be at peace.
Acting leader Naim Qassem says if Israel decides to launch a ground offensive, the group's fighters are ready. He suggested that the commanders who died have already been replaced. Qassem will remain in the acting position until the group's leadership elects a replacement. The man widely expected to take over the top post is a cousin of Nasrallah who oversees the group's political affairs. Israel, meanwhile, continued strikes over the weekend. The U.S. has advised both sides against escalating tensions. Joining us now is Michael Pregent, Middle East analyst at the Hudson Institute, to discuss this further. Michael, it's good to see you. Today, the Pentagon did say that more U.S. forces have been put on prepare to deploy orders. Now, they didn't exactly specify what they could be doing in the Middle East. What does this tell you about how this conflict is developing?
Well, I think it's less significant that the U.S. is deploying assets to the Middle East. It's more significant. The more significant statement is what Netanyahu just said about Iran. The U.S. has done everything it can to distance Iran from what happened on October 7th. If the United States wanted this war to end, it would have put pressure on the regime in Tehran October 8th, and that never happened. So we just saw what Netanyahu was able to do with Hezbollah. I think what he just said is a warning to the IRGC leadership, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps leadership, and also the Supreme Leader. If Israel can hit Nasrallah, if Israel can hit Hania inside of Tehran, they can certainly hit the Supreme Leader. They can certainly hit IRGC generals. And every member of the IRGC right now, Hezbollah and Hamas, are terrified of picking up a phone, a radio, or using a pager.
And now, Michael, zoning in a little more on the dynamics in the Middle East, Netanyahu did say that Israel has changed the strategic reality in the Middle East. What does he mean by this?
Well, Israel just took the leading instrument that Tehran uses to protect its actions, meaning Hezbollah. Hezbollah as a deterrent has been degraded. It hasn't been defeated, but it has been degraded. That communications attack a week ago took out every capable leader all the way down to the team level. So we're seeing replacements now inside of Hezbollah that were probably the 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th choice to replace an individual ahead of them, meaning this is not the talent, this is simply who's left.
And now, is a full-scale ground invasion of Lebanon imminent? What will that mean for the region if it does happen?
Well, the use of the term limited incursion into Lebanon means south of the Itani River, right? South of the Itani line. And that's where Hezbollah is. That's where it's not supposed to be. The Lebanese armed forces were not supposed to allow Hezbollah south of that line. The UN was not supposed to allow Hezbollah south of that line. But as we know, terrorist organizations don't listen to the UN or listen to their governments, especially the Lebanese armed forces, but that's a topic for another show. So a limited incursion is language to go into southern Lebanon. And what does that mean? It means that Hezbollah will be further degraded. It means that Iran's deterrence proxy, that is Hezbollah, will not be as effective as it has been in the past. And this strike against Nasrallah and all of the people next to him, everybody who was capable of replacing him, this is significant. This degraded Hezbollah to a point where it can no longer function at the battalion and brigade level. It can only function at the fractured team level. It can still launch rockets and cruise missiles, but it's not going to be able to defend against an Israeli invasion.
Okay, Michael, I do want to mention that there are reports coming out that the Israeli army has entered Lebanese territory. Now, important to note here that this is unconfirmed officially yet, but President Biden today called for a ceasefire, and there are other analysts that are worried that if fighting continues, more countries will be forced to get involved, and this whole conflict will become a far larger issue. Where do you see the risks now?
Well, I would argue that this is what war with Iran looks like. This is what happened in the last week significantly degraded Iran's capability. This is what war with Iran looks like. Hezbollah was the deterrent proxy again. But other countries getting involved, we're not worried about the Iraqi militias. They're ineffective. They don't have bunkers to hide in. They're hiding above ground under tables inside of Iraq and Syria. Other countries getting involved. People talk about Russia getting involved on the side of Iran. I don't see that happening. I don't see China getting involved. I think that language of fear of escalation doesn't mean anything anymore after a week of what Israel just did to Hezbollah and what Israel has done to Hamas over the last 10 months. And I'm not being optimistic. I'm not trying to cheerlead what Israel's doing. I'm just looking at an organization that was decimated. All of the key leaders across Hezbollah down to the team level were either blinded, injured seriously, or killed in this communication strike. And then, of course, we have what the IDF has done to the Houthis, as we see in this video here, what they were able to do to Hezbollah in the Nasrallah strike. The Iraqi militias are not going to be a problem for the IDF. The United States right now needs to take advantage of this opportunity and help the Lebanese people push Hezbollah out. We have to look at what the Arab world did after Nasrallah was killed. They celebrated. There were people that were anti-Israel a week ago that are applauding Israel's actions against Hezbollah inside of Lebanon. And there's momentum here. And the West needs to get on board and back Israel in taking out Hamas and Hezbollah. And the international community needs to put extreme pressure on Iran, on China not to fund Iran, on Russia not to use Iranian drones in Ukraine. And a lot of this will go away, but we're not doing that. So Israel's doing it alone. And that's who used when you address the Iranian people. They're going to start targeting the regime leadership inside of the Supreme Leader Council, the Supreme Leader possibly, but definitely the IRGC, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, inside of Iran. And that'll be significant.
So really quickly, Michael, based on what you just said there, do you think there's any sort of plausible possibility that Iran will have some sort of major retaliation for Nasrallah's death?
We have to remember that every retaliation that Iran has put in place against Israel was coordinated with the United States ahead of time, and Israel knew it was coming. That's why 300 rockets, missiles, and drones were taken out by the United States, by the UK, by Jordan, by Saudi Arabia, and by Israel. We keep allowing Iran these face-saving gestures so they can off-ramp. Iran can't hit anything with a precision strike inside of Israel. Israel can take it down. We have to remember that only one rocket got through, and it was the debris from that rocket after being hit by Israeli air defenses that injured that young Arab Bedouin girl who ended up dying of her wounds inside of Israel. So my answer, I know you asked me to keep this short, is Iran doesn't have the capability to do what Israel just did to Hezbollah and Hamas, and the regime knows Israel can hit anything at any time it wants to inside of Iran, and Iran can't do anything about it.
So when it comes to this continued support from the U.S., are there any red lines that Israel cannot cross?
There aren't at this point. I mean, we're looking at, and it's good that Western allies are looking at what Iran's doing with his nuclear program. It's not there yet. And we have red lines. If Iran crosses a red line, then there's a kinetic military option on the table to take out a capability that Iran has in its nuclear program. Those are the only red lines are ones that Tehran will cross that would prompt a U.S. response. There are no red lines at this point. The United States did not want Israel to take out Nasrallah. That's off the table now. The leader of Hezbollah is dead, and Americans should celebrate that. Nasrallah killed a bunch of Americans over time and was basically joined the war after October 7th on October 8th against Israel. So right now, a lot of these proxies are looking at Tehran and saying, where are you? Where are you in all this? They just killed Nasrallah. What are you going to do about it? And the dirty secret in the Middle East is Tehran is terrified of the Israeli response and of Israeli capabilities.
And Michael, quickly in the last 30 seconds before we go here, the killing of these terrorist leaders, has this been a deterrent or has it galvanized support for these organizations? What's going on the ground there?
So we have to remember, Israel killed everybody close to Nasrallah to the point where he was the only one left. Every one of those strikes was a warning to Nasrallah to stop. He didn't listen, and Israel took him out. So it is deterrence, it is a message, it is a signal, and Tehran has no choice but to hear it and hear it out loud.
Michael Pregent, Middle East analyst at the Hudson Institute. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Moving on, the U.S. military announced a series of strikes it conducted in Syria earlier this month. It says it killed 37 terrorist group members. U.S. Central Command says some of those killed had ties to ISIS and were affiliates of al-Qaeda. In a statement, CENTCOM said the airstrikes were part of an ongoing effort to disrupt terror activities in the region. Officials said the strikes killed a senior terrorist leader who was responsible for overseeing military operations from Syria. The strikes took place days before CENTCOM announced the global coalition to defeat ISIS will end its mission in Iraq by September 2025 and in Syria by the following year.
In France, a public debate on immigration policies is ongoing. It was triggered by the murder of a young woman allegedly raped and murdered by an illegal immigrant. NTD's international correspondent David Vivez attended a commemoration for the victim yesterday in Paris.
The body of Philippine, a 19-year-old student, was found buried in a Paris park on September 21st. The suspect, a 22-year-old Moroccan, was arrested in Switzerland a few days later.
The murder of Philippine in Paris has ignited a heated debate on immigration policies after it was revealed that the suspect, a Moroccan national previously convicted of rape, was due to deportation.
A judge has set the suspect free on September 3rd because the expulsion process was bogged down in administrative delays. This murder comes after several similar cases have been reported in the country in recent months. 500 people gathered in Paris on Sunday to mourn the young woman's death. The president of Nemesis Association, Alice Cordier, says it's alarming that many women in France don't feel safe.
Safety is a very serious matter in France. There's more and more of it. Women are going out armed in France. We've got pepper bombs, we've got little knives, we've got needles in our buns. Women have to choose which paths they're going to take to avoid the trouble.
Her association organizes protests about violence against women. They say illegal immigrants can pose more of a risk of violence for women. Official figures say only 7% of illegal migrants with deportation warrants are actually deported. For the Nemesis Association, France's laws are lenient regarding the condemnation of sexual aggression in perpetrators.
It's been a year since I was raped. It was November 11th, 2023. I've been trying to fight for a year to get answers from the government and to ask for action. There's nothing from them. So I really hope that with the new government, something can be done so they can make the deportation warrants actually work.
According to the Paris prefecture, 77% of rapes in Paris in 2023 were committed by foreigners. France's new government stated last week that it's open to toughening immigration laws. David Vivez, NTD News, Paris.
Coming up, an annual event in London honors a medieval rite dating back to the 12th century.
That's right, a renowned British actor herds sheep as part of the tradition. More in just a moment here on NTD News.
Is deep-sea fish oil really healthy? Due to pollution in the oceans, most fish contain heavy metal elements and radioactive substances. That's why it's so important to choose a pure source of omega-3. Puritang Green Vegetable Omega-3 is made from purslane and perilla seeds, which are rich in nutrients and minerals, especially vitamins A, D, E, calcium, and iron. With natural processing and no harmful chemical additives, it has more than 90% concentration of omegas 3, 6, 7, and 9. It effectively improves brain power and is beneficial to the heart's health. Puritang Omega-3 does not smell of fish and contains no pollutants, so both adults and children can safely and easily consume it over a long period of time. Puritang Green Vegetable Omega-3. Greener, healthier, and more effective. Visit puritang.com to learn more.
The 7th NTD International Piano Competition will take place at the Kaufman Music Center in New York City. Pianists from around the world will come together to revive the great piano masterpieces. Join us on this uplifting journey. The semifinals, finals, and the winner's concert will be open to audiences and live streamed from October 17th to the 19th Get tickets now at 212-501-3330.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me.
They're just young people, hungry, homeless, and vulnerable. Covenant House is helping young adults facing homelessness. We're providing safe shelter to thousands, but the need is overwhelming. Please call or go online now. With your gift of $19 a month, we'll send you this blanket as a reminder of the comfort your gift provides a young person tonight. You'll provide safe shelter, hot meals, and medical care. Call the number on your screen or go online to safeplacetosleep.org.
An annual event in London honors a medieval rite dating back to the 12th century. Resurrected in 2013, the tradition honors Britain's wool industry. NTD's Andrew Thomas has more on the country's prized sheep and shepherds.
Renowned British actor Damian Lewis herded sheep Sunday across Southwark Bridge in London. The Band of Brothers and Homeland star honored the medieval tradition.
Freemen of the City of London can drive their sheep, always able to drive their sheep toll-free, free of charge, across the bridge, London Bridge as it was in the day, into the City of London in order to sell their produce.
The sheep drive is an ancient rite extended to freemen of the City of London and continues to this day. This year, Emmanuel Cohen received the honor of Master Woolman.
And being a freeman was equivalent to the very first passport. And you could go in and out of the walls of the city, you could travel around England, and you wouldn't be captured and become a serf, almost an indentured slave.
The sheep for the event came from Bedfordshire, from the family-run Manor Farm. Sheep farmer Charles Seamark ensured no sheep escaped into the heart of one of Europe's largest cities.
Well, we have to bring the prettiest ones. So, so any that look good, they're the ones that come for today, because they've got to look good for the day for the celebrity. But also they have to be well behaved as well.
Crossing a major thoroughfare in London can be tricky, even for people. Fortunately, a sheepdog kept errant sheep from straying too far from the flock. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
As officials work to restore power and repair damage by Hurricane Helene, former President Trump surveyed a hard-hit city in Georgia and vowed to help. Joining us now live is NTD's Iris Tao. Good afternoon, Iris. Tell us more about the former president's trip there and what's going on today on the ground.
Sure. So former President Trump has been on full campaign mode recently, traveling to almost a state every single day for campaigning. But today he traveled to a town in southern Georgia to survey the damage caused by the hurricane and also to get an operational briefing on the ground. He said himself that he's bringing a truckload of supplies, including oil, water, and equipment to help the local communities. And he also said that now is the time to focus on the affected communities and forget about politics. And here's what he said. Let's watch a clip.
As you know, our country is in the final weeks of a hard-fought national election. But in a time like this, when a crisis hits, when our fellow citizens cry out in need, none of that matters. We're not talking about politics now. We have to all get together and get this solved. It won't be easy because this one is so bad, but we know in our hearts, God is with us. God is strongly with us.
And Iris, we're just one day away from the VP debate here in New York City. What's being said there in Trump circles?
Sure. So as you know, tomorrow will be the first and potentially the last VP debate, and could be the very last debate we see in this election cycle, because there's not going to be another one between Trump and Harris. And the Trump campaign has been saying how J.D. Vance is very well prepared. Trump saying today that he thinks J.D. is going to do great. He's a very smart guy, adding that he doesn't need advice from him, and that they have been speaking a little bit back and forth. We also know that tomorrow night Trump will be doing a play-by-play during the VP debate. He's going to be having 2 campaign events in Milwaukee while the debate is going on. We will be there to report live from on the ground, but also we know that New York City will be all eyes, where all eyes are on, because we'll see how the 2 VP candidates will, really clash with each other and face off each other for the first time on stage.
And before we go, the Hurricane Helene is a big topic, of course. VP debate, important, of course. But I want to go back for a second to this Hurricane Helene. What else has Trump said about this whole mess down there?
Right, so as we just noted, he said that politics is not the focus, but he still used the opportunity to criticize the federal government's response in this situation. He accused it of not being responsible and responsive enough when it comes to communicating with the local governor. And here's what he said. So here's another clip. Watch.
Vice President, she's out someplace campaigning, looking for money. So they have to be focused over here. It's too big. This is a really bad one. And the governor's doing a good job, but he's having a hard time getting the president on the phone.
Meanwhile, Trump also led a moment of silence for those who were killed in this unfortunate disaster, and also emphasized the impact it's having on especially farmers whose livelihoods and crops were heavily affected, he said. He also said that he's been talking with Elon Musk to help those who need internet get Starlink.
All right, Iris, thank you so much for the report. Keep it coming.
Of course. Thank you.
Coming up, the dreaded port strike is coming. 85,000 workers plan to walk out Tuesday, emptying storage shelves and costing the economy billions per day. That and more after the break.
بیست و سه سال 16 سال عمري ما هفت
اما داعش کردی آن برانبر خشک و دایکانی ازدی ما کاری که دور لهمو چمک دموکراسی و موافقانی مرو و انسانیت او بارودو خی که است های به تایبت لعراق و سوریا بشه که دگرت و با حالانه که اداره اوباما کرد
مریم بو او هفت روز بو و داعش از کرد
تامبوم كرا قوتينيز قريا بما متشكر بهار بيدن نبو باوان رحم نبو
قدامنا سؤالان من خادران نزر باوان نفستم بس نا مانا قو بس ناش بيجوش باش.
They would literally be auctioned in front of soldiers, and then the soldiers begin to bid.
زارود وان همو جيبرن تي حملي زارود الدم واسسي وان همو جيبرن
وحشیگریه که توا عیاره ظلمی که یک جار زور گوره لما افرطانه کرا و تعدایی که زور زوریان لیده که اما نه روزانه دست فروشیده
اليوم التوزيع كلنا نصيب.
Imagine being a child, having a child mentality, and these evil people come and wheel you away from the only safety you've ever known.
The tempting online world is encroaching on our campus. Is unplugging cables and confiscating phones the solution to protect our children? No, we just need a clean multimedia platform. Join Ganjing Campus to leverage premium channel features, professional development courses, and kindness event toolkits tailored for teachers. Build a truly positive and interactive classroom community. Foster a pure and delightful learning environment for children.
My graduation was something I will never forget.
People like you and me sometimes may have doubts in ourselves, but I feel that everything's possible.
Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org.
Got a new house.
I think I finally found a place that I call home.
They fill in for the president when they're called upon.
We need a leader who fights for the people who built this country.
A debate between candidates for second in command.
Let's chart that new way forward. Let's do it because we believe in the promise of America.
Watch the CBS News Vice Presidential Debate simulcast right here on NTD News, and catch our live pre- and post-debate coverage with Steve Lance and Tiffany Meyer on The Nation Decides 2024, tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern on NTD News.
Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Fiona G.
And I'm Carrie Dunst.
Kamala Harris cuts her trip in Nevada short to return to Washington, D.C. to get updates on Hurricane Helene.
Meanwhile, former President Trump reacts to the deadly hurricane at Valdosta, Georgia.
Over 100 people are dead after Hurricane Helene sweeps through multiple states. Almost 3 million homes still without power.
Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell is sharing his thoughts on the economy less than 2 weeks after the central bank slashed interest rates for the first time in years.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu addresses the Iranian people directly as the Israel-Lebanon conflict continues.
The dreaded port strike could be coming tomorrow. 85,000 dock workers are planning to walk off the job, resulting in empty store shelves and costing the economy billions per day.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Over 100 people are dead after Hurricane Helene swept through multiple states.
Yes, and the number might keep rising as some are still unaccounted for. Here's the latest on the situation.
Hurricane Helene has already claimed the lives of over 90 people. Search and rescue missions are underway. North and South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, Tennessee, and Virginia are affected. Financial damages could go up to $100 billion, according to estimates. Georgia Governor Brian Kemp spoke on the situation, despite many cell phone towers being down, affecting the quality of the signal.
This storm literally spared no one. It took one of our finest and a firefighter, Leon Davis, who was with the Blackshear Fire Department Assistant Chief while responding to a call.
Helene also slammed Florida's Gulf Coast, destroying homes and triggering days of heavy rain. It washed out roads, decimated neighborhoods, and left many communities without water and basic necessities.
We worked really hard with the Department of Transportation to clear the roads, and so as of now, we've done, tens of thousands of miles have been cleared.
Helene left around 2.7 million people throughout the South without power. The White House says President Biden plans to visit affected areas this week. That's once he can do so without disrupting emergency services. On Monday afternoon, former President Trump tweeted, "We are now heading to Georgia in order to pay my respects and bring lots of relief material."
As rescue efforts are underway following the aftermath of Hurricane Helene's destruction, the Biden administration is moving quickly to help.
Now, NTD's Washington correspondent Jack Bradley joins us from the White House. Jack, what is the latest on the federal response on the hurricane?
Well, the latest on the response is that President Biden is going to be set to head out to the afflicted neighborhoods and areas very soon, as soon as he's able to. We know that the president leaves a very big footprint when he travels places, so they're trying to direct that emergency response to the hurricane-stricken region and not allocating it to President Biden. Now, as far as this hurricane goes, Biden's approved several states' declarations to give them more services, provide individual loans and just assistance. Now, there's over 100 dead we know so far, but that number could be 6 times that amount, as there's over 600 people still accounted for. Here's President Biden earlier today.
Not just a catastrophic storm, it's a historic, history-making storm. The entire Southeast and Appalachia. Damage from the hurricane stretches across at least 10 states. Winds over 120 miles an hour in some places. Storm surges up to 15 feet and record flooding. Communities are devastated. Loved ones waiting, not sure if their loved ones are okay, and they can't contact them because there's no cell phone connections.
Now, President Biden has been responding to criticism that he was spending the weekend at his beach house rather than at the White House overseeing the emergency response to this. He responded by saying that he could do it all by the phone. He spent hours on the phone talking to state and local leaders on this. Guys?
All right, Jack, clearly very devastating what's happening down there, but I want to talk about something else happening at the White House. They just hosted the 2024 U.S. Olympic and Paralympic teams. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, so this was a really exciting moment with, we saw thousands of people actually at the White House today. It was a very big crowd, and over 400 athletes from the Olympics, Paralympics were there. Very excited to be there and receive acknowledgement from President Biden. We know that the U.S. has more Olympic medals, over 230 combined with the Olympics, Paralympics, about half between them, more than any other country. Now, Biden has talked about the sacrifices put in that moment of greatness that you see on TV. There's a lot of hours and years of sacrifice that goes into it. Here's Biden earlier.
When you competed, it wasn't just you in the spotlight. You represent all the people who sacrificed for you, as was mentioned earlier, just as you sacrificed yourselves. Early hours, long days, intense training, sometimes overcoming extreme disappointment. For many of you, you hold down multiple jobs to fund your dreams. And by the way, we need to do more to support all of our Team USA athletes.
Now, the U.S. Olympics are set to host, the U.S. is set to host the Olympics in L.A. in 2028 and over in Utah in 2034. Now, this comes amid growing tension between the World Anti-Doping Agency and the U.S. So WADA, the World Anti-Doping Agency, didn't penalize Chinese athletes over their performance-enhancing drugs that they were found testing positive for back in 2021. So half of those athletes that tested positive for TMZ, it strengthens you and makes you run faster and longer. Those Chinese athletes, half of them competed in the most recent Olympics this year. Now, a U.S. investigation into this has been taking place, but the International Olympic Committee has fought back, saying that if you don't respect WADA by conducting this investigation, you will not be allowed to host the Olympics in 2034 in Utah. So there's a lot of fighting going on here, but we can see what's coming out soon. And on another note, while we're here at the White House, President Biden did issue the largest supplemental funding to Taiwan. It was over $560 million, the largest amount to defend Taiwan. And this comes amid increasing aggression in the South China Sea. Guys?
Jack Bradley reporting from the White House there. Thanks for that very comprehensive report. A fire at a chemical plant in Georgia forced 17,000 residents to evacuate. The blaze in Conyers also led to the closure of a major highway. The incident began at around 5:30 a.m. yesterday when a sprinkler malfunctioned. It reacted with chemicals, creating a large plume of smoke. You could see the smoke from miles away. I mean, if you look at that footage, really is incredible. The Rockdale County Fire Department said the fire was initially contained. However, it reignited around noon, prompting more evacuations. Because of increasing concerns around air quality, residents were asked to shelter in place until midnight. Environmental officials are assessing potential hazards. They warn of possible toxic exposure from the smoke. In the Middle East, the Hezbollah terrorist group has a new acting leader. This comes after an Israeli airstrike killed longtime chief Hassan Nasrallah. The new leader says that he is ready for combat.
Yes, and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu addressed the situation. He made the following remarks.
The vast majority of Iranians know their regime doesn't care a whit about them. If it did care, if it cared about you, it would stop wasting billions of dollars on futile wars across the Middle East. It would start improving your lives. When Iran is finally free, and that moment will come a lot sooner than people think, everything will be different. Our two ancient peoples, the Jewish people and the Persian people, will finally be at peace. Our two countries, Israel and Iran, will be at peace.
Acting leader Naim Qassem says if Israel decides to launch a ground offensive, the group's fighters are ready. He suggested that the commanders who died have already been replaced now. Qassem will remain in the acting position until the group's leadership elects a replacement. The man widely expected to take over the top position is a cousin of Nasrallah who oversees the group's political affairs. Israel, meanwhile, continued strikes over the weekend. The U.S. has advised both sides against escalating tensions. Vice President Kamala Harris skips 2 campaign stops in Nevada to go back to Washington, D.C. for briefings on Hurricane Helene.
Her campaign also reported $55 million raised at events in California. NTD's Jason Blair brings us the latest.
Kamala Harris was scheduled to make 2 more stops in Nevada on Monday following a Sunday rally in Las Vegas. Instead, she cut things short and she flew out Monday morning back to Washington. A White House official said she'll be briefed at FEMA headquarters on Hurricane Helene. Helene has been causing widespread devastation to multiple states in the southeast. At least 95 people have been killed, millions are without power, and many trapped in floodwaters. On Sunday, Harris posted a statement on X saying, "Our administration will continue to stay in constant contact with state and local officials to ensure communities have the support and resources they need." A White House official said that Harris plans to visit the affected areas as soon as possible without disrupting energy response operations. Over the weekend, Harris attended fundraising events in San Francisco and Los Angeles. Her campaign reports a total of $55 million raised, with $27 million in San Francisco and $28 million in LA. Tickets to the San Francisco fundraiser, held at the Palace of Fine Arts, reportedly ranged from $500 to $2,800. And tickets for the LA fundraiser at the city's downtown JW Marriott Hotel ranged from $500 to $1 million. Reporting in Washington, D.C., Jason Blair, NTD News.
Minnesota Governor Tim Walz and Ohio Senator J.D. Vance are set to face off in their first and only VP debate tomorrow in New York City. It'll be hosted by CBS News and will begin at 9 p.m. Moderators will be CBS anchor Norah O'Donnell and Face the Nation host Margaret Brennan. The debate will last 90 minutes. There will be no live audience or opening statements. Each candidate has 2 minutes to respond to questions, followed by a 2-minute rebuttal and then a 1-minute response. Both will give closing statements, with Vance going last, having won a coin toss. Pre-written notes and props are prohibited, but candidates may use pen and paper. CBS has the ability to mute microphones if needed, and staffers are precluded from interacting with their candidates during the breaks. Employees at the Department of Veteran Affairs improperly accessed medical records for both vice presidential candidate nominees. About 2 months ago, an employee at the VA Inspector General's office reached out to Senator J.D. Vance to alert him of the breach. And a Harris campaign spokesperson said it was also informed about a breach of Minnesota Governor Tim Walz's records. The Washington Post reports at least a dozen employees accessed these files. An investigation is now underway. Vance spent 4 years in the Marines and served in Iraq as a combat correspondent. Walz served 24 years in the National Guard before retiring. The man charged with attempting to assassinate former President Trump in Florida pleaded not guilty in federal court today. Ryan Ruth faces 5 charges, including the assassination attempt, gun law violations, and assault on a federal officer. He's been ordered to remain in jail until trial. Prosecutors allege Ruth planned to kill Trump as he golfed in West Palm Beach on September 15th. Ruth criticized Trump in a self-published book. He also allegedly dropped off a letter with someone months earlier referencing his assassination attempt on Trump.
Coming up, the dreaded port strike could start tomorrow. 85,000 dock workers are planning to walk off the job, resulting in empty store shelves and costing the economy billions per day.
With children making money through social media platforms like YouTube, protections are now needed to safeguard their money until they become of age. That and more after this short break.
We design Native Path products to restore essential nutrients missing from the modern diet. This is what being on the path is all about. We're more than a health and wellness brand, we're a community.
Looking for a healthy and smooth-tasting brew? Drop by Days Coffee Roasters today and explore our wide selection of specialty-grade, small-batch roasted coffee. Home to North America's first enzyme-fermented coffee, we source a wide selection of specialty-grade coffee beans from around the world, and our baristas are ready to craft your customized brew. Visit Days Coffee at 28 North Street, Middletown, New York. Come experience a brew like no other.
Sarah, كثير رعب وطبعا هلا يعني أنا بحس بالرعب الكبير بدنا بس نعيش بأمان.
Conflict is raging across the world, and millions of children's lives are being devastated by war, hunger, disease, and poverty. We urgently need your help to reach children in crisis. Please call or go online to give just $10 a month, only 33 cents a day. We need 1,000 new monthly donors this month to help children in crisis around the world and right here at home. You can help us provide food, essentials, and life-saving medical care to children in the most need.
يعني بدنا نعيش زي كل الأطفال بدنا نعيش بحرية وأمان.
In the darkest times, children suffer the most. You can help by calling right now and giving just $10 a month. All we need are 1,000 monthly donors. Please call or go online now with your monthly gift of just $10. Thanks to generous government grants, every dollar you give can have up to 10 times the impact. And when you call with your credit card, we will send you this Save the Children tote bag as a thank you for your support.
وعيت على هاي الدنيا القصف والنزوح والخيمة. أتمنى نعاود على بلادنا. شايفين لك إنه هذا مستحيل.
Your small monthly donation of just $10 could be the reason a child in crisis survives. Show them they're not alone. Please call or go online to givetosave.org to help save lives.
Looking for a healthy and smooth-tasting brew? Drop by Days Coffee Roasters today and explore our wide selection of specialty-grade small batch roasted coffee. Home to North America's first enzyme-fermented coffee, we source a wide selection of specialty-grade coffee beans from around the world, and our baristas are ready to craft your customized brew. Visit Days Coffee at 28 North Street, Middletown, New York. Come experience a brew like no other.
For today's Business Matters, we have Paul Graney here with us. Paul, what's happening in the world of business today, sir?
Carrie, thank you, Fiona. Great to see you. We'll get right to it. All right, so first up, we have a story on changing TV habits among Americans. DirecTV has agreed to buy rival Dish Network. Now, under the deal, Dish will pay Dish's owner, EchoStar, just $1. That's in exchange for assuming it's billions of dollars in debt. And if the companies combine, the new service will have about 20 million subscribers. At its peak, DirecTV had 20 million subscribers alone. Both companies have struggled to keep customers as streaming platforms like Netflix, Hulu, and Prime Video, they've gained traction. For years, there have been talks in the satellite services merging, but the U.S. government previously blocked a $19 billion merger in 2002 on competitive grounds. How times change. Additional oversight for General Motors' self-driving unit Cruise. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration says GM will have to pay a $1.5 million fine for disclosing to fail details about a serious crash involving a pedestrian in October last year. That's with the self-driving car. Under the settlement, Cruise will also have to submit an updated action plan to improve serious accident reporting to the agency. It'll also have to under enhanced reporting requirements for the next 2 years. A new analysis shows that Americans are becoming increasingly reliant on federal government debt. This is based on research by Economic Innovation Group. It found that by 2022, more than half of U.S. counties relied on government aid for at least a quarter of their income, compared to that to less than 1% of counties back in the 1970s. The group said the deepening dependence was based on aging populations, as well as economic distress in communities. And speaking of federal aid, a pandemic area student loan benefit ends this week. That was the one-year grace period for borrowers who would miss a payment. That'll no longer be in effect. The Biden administration has provided this on-ramp period after student loan repayments resumed. That was following the 3-year pandemic-era pause. During the last year, student loan services were not reporting missed, late, or partial payments to the national credit bureaus. But now they will notify the bureaus, which could affect your credit score. This change comes as the fate of a Biden administration student loan repayment plan is on hold as litigation plays out. A hearing for that is scheduled for October 15th at the 8th U.S. Circuit of Appeals. It's been about 2 weeks since the U.S. Central Bank entered its first easing cycle in years. You'll remember the Federal Reserve cut interest rates by half a point. Now the Fed Chair Jerome Powell is sharing his thoughts on the outlook for the economy. He gave an address today at the National Association for Business Economics Conference in Nashville.
For much of the past 3 years, inflation ran well above our goal and the labor market was extremely tight. Appropriately, our focus was on bringing down inflation. By keeping monetary policy restrictive, we helped restore the balance between overall supply and demand in the economy. That patient approach has paid dividends. Inflation is now much closer to our 2% objective. Today, we see the risks to achieving our employment and inflation goals as roughly in balance.
Powell noted 2 positive signs in the economy since the rate cut, which has removed some of the downside risk, things getting worse. First, the revised up GDP and GDI numbers and the increase in estimated rise in disposable income. Powell's speech came on the heels of the association's new survey. 39% of professionals surveyed cited a hypothetical monetary policy mistake by the central bank as the greatest downside risk to the U.S. economy. That's over the next year. The next biggest risks were the presidential election and the conflicts in Ukraine and the Middle East. And a serious strike at U.S. ports could start tomorrow. Thousands of workers plan to stop working. This will possibly result in empty store shelves and inflation. Here's the story.
Port workers plan to start striking Tuesday. The International Longshoremen's Association, or ILA, and its employers can't finalize a contract, so the ILA plans to halt business at 14 East and Gulf Coast ports, which handled 68% of container imports last year.
First week, be all over the news. Second week, guys who sell cars can't sell cars because the cars ain't coming in off the ships. They get laid off. Third week, malls start closing down.
ILA President Harold Daggett says it's unfair that shipping companies are making billions and investing in automation while longshoremen are paid little. He says the strike will show how important they are.
Everything in the United States comes on a ship. They go out of business. Construction workers get laid off because the materials aren't coming in. The steel's not coming in. The lumber's not coming in. They lose their job.
The union wants to raise their top hourly wage from $39 to $69 and maintain a ban on fully automated equipment. The strike is expected to cost the U.S. economy billions of dollars per day.
You would have a very dramatic change in our ability to move goods, and this would actually impact trade not just on the East and Gulf Coast, but globally, because ships would start backing up, you would have delays.
Shipping expert Sal Mercogliano says we could see a literal standstill in some ports, and that the strike's impact could be terrible.
This will have consequences on the shelves of Costco, Costco wholesale, Target, Home Depot, et cetera, Walmart.
Maritime expert Rockford Whites says the strike could disrupt the holiday shopping season. Products that could be affected include European cars, fruits, vegetables, coffee, chemicals, clothing, furniture, pharmaceutical drugs, and alcohol. Prices could also rise. The strike could also influence the upcoming presidential election.
And a $1.5 billion loan has been granted for the first restart and restoration of a nuclear reactor. The Department of Energy announced today that the Palisades nuclear plant in Michigan got the loan. It said the money will be used for inspections, testing, restoration, and some more things at the plant. The plant closed about 2 years ago when nuclear struggled to compete with natural gas. The restoration comes amid increasing electricity demand and desire to balance some climate goals, also AI. The restart still requires approval from the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission, but the Palisades owner hopes to restart the facility at the end of next year. Ford has launched a new program to help drivers transition from gas-powered vehicles to electric. The Ford Power Promise will include installing a home charger, complimentary 24-hour service, and roadside assistance. The program will be for customers who purchase or lease a new Ford EV during the fourth quarter. And if customers don't need a home charger, $2,000 can be applied towards a purchase or lease instead. The program is meant to help educate people about electric vehicles and address concerns like costs and charging infrastructure. This comes as EV sales growth is moving at a slower rate. Ford's EV sales for the first half of the year trailed behind Tesla and Hyundai. Staying on cars, investors hit the brakes on Stellantis today. Shares in the car giant fell around 14%. That was after it slashed annual forecasts. The company warned it would burn through cash faster than expected. Stellantis blamed higher costs to overhauling its U.S. business and Chinese competition on electric vehicles. That's one to watch. The Peugeot and Jeep owner isn't the only major European car maker to warn on profit. It joins Volkswagen, which recently cut its annual outlook for the second time in 3 months, while BMW and Mercedes have also lowered their outlooks. The downgrades come as the European Union finalizes plans over possible tariffs on electric vehicles from China. And over in California, child actors aren't the only ones that need protection from their own parents mismanaging money. The state is now looking to protect child social media influencers. NTD's Sean Marshall has more.
California Governor Gavin Newsom signed 2 pieces of legislation to protect children and teenagers who perform in online content from financial abuse. Brand deals featuring kids and teens can make tens of thousands of dollars per video, but there has been very little regulation until now.
That industry has obviously evolved now with
Yes.
online, social media, content creators. There's been this glaring gap.
Yes.
And this legislation basically closes that.
Legislation was also endorsed by former child star and current singer and activist Demi Lovato. Lovato explains how the 2 pieces of legislation work and how one piece is an expansion of the Coogan Law, what the Coogan Law is, and how it started.
Jackie Coogan had made a bunch of money and then his parents stole his money and he ended up suing them for it. But the Coogan Law is a protection put in place for child actors in film and television. And it is basically a percentage of your money goes into a trust and you receive that money when you turn 18. No one can touch it, but it's yours when you turn 18. And that's the safeguard that was put in place for the film and television industry for child actors.
California laws protecting child social media influencers are the second form of this legislation. The first was in Illinois that took effect in July. The California measures apply to all children under 18, while the Illinois law covers those under 16. Sean Marshall, NTD News.
And to finish up today, down on Wall Street, we'll take a look at the indexes. So we see all green down on Wall Street again. We see the S&P up 24 points, about 4.42%. Dow Jones up about flat for the day, up a little, 0.04%. The Nasdaq up about 0.4% today, all smiling down on Wall Street. With that, that's about it, guys.
Well, thanks, Paul. I thought it was interesting, that whole discussion there about protection for the money of child influencers. What do you guys think?
Yeah, it is quite interesting. With the emergence of these social media platforms, gamers and YouTube stars can earn as much or more than Hollywood stars, but that money, if the parents have control of it and are frivolous, it could be spent down the drain.
Yeah, but you wonder, will that affect the number of channels which us as viewers are offered? Because if a parent decides, well, it's not really worth it, I don't get any of this money anyway, maybe they just have the kid, learn to do something else.
I mean, I think that's an interesting point that you bring up, although I do think that it is important to have some protection in place. I mean, over the course of Hollywood's history, we have seen a lot of child actors whose fortunes have been squandered by their families. Of course, not all. There are some parents who are very responsible and financially responsible, but I think that having some sort of law in place is a good step. Lots of nuances.
I would think viralness happens much more suddenly than putting someone through the Hollywood sort of approach, because lots of kids are out there YouTubing or what have you, and then one day a video goes viral and this drops in their lap.
Yeah, well, it's a very, very new thing. I mean, this isn't something that we had around 10 years, 15 years ago. So yeah, we'll have to see how it plays out.
Very interesting to keep an eye on that. Thanks so much, Paul.
Thank you, guys.
Medicare patients nationwide will notice lower costs for many prescription drugs. What's making these cuts possible?
And thousands of Verizon customers were affected by a large outage today. Many said their phones displayed SOS mode intermittently. Stay tuned for that after the break.
بیست و سه سال 16 سال عمري ما هفت
اما داعش کردیان برانبر خوشک و دایکان یزدی ما کاری که دور لهمو چمک دموکراسی و موافقانی مرو و انسانیت او بارودوخی که است های به تایبت لعراق و سوریه بشه که دگرت و با حالانه که اداره اوباما کرد
ریم بو او هفت روز بو و داعش از کرد
تامبوم كرا قوتينيز قريا بما متشكر بهار فيدان نبو باوان رحم نبو
ودمنا سؤالان من خادران نزر باوان نفستم بس نا مانا قوبس ناش بجوش باش.
They would literally be auctioned in front of soldiers, and then the soldiers begin to bid.
زارود وان همو جيبرم تي حمري زارود الدمع واسسي وان همو جيبرم
وحشیگری که توا عیار ظلمێکی یەکجار زۆر گەورە لەم ئافرەتانە کراوە تعادایەکی زۆر زۆریان لێ دەکرێت ئەمانە ڕۆژانە دەست فرۆشی دەکرێت.
Imagine being a child, having a child mentality, and these evil people come and wheel you away from the only safety you've ever known.
Do you know that Cars for Compassion is the best way to donate your car? Through this non-profit program, you can not only help us keep bringing the world independent and daringly truthful journalism, but also significantly impact the life of somebody who needs a vehicle. The Epoch Times fights misinformation and big tech censorship by being independent and unbound to advertisers. Every single contribution to Cars for Compassion is a powerful endorsement of our unwavering mission. All you have to do is go to carsforcompassion.org and let us know about your car, and we'll schedule a pickup time and email you a tax-deductible receipt. To do this, just click the link below, support truth, compassion, and hope. Donate your car right now at www.carsforcompassion.org.
When they learn something new and you can just see in their faces, it's such an incredible moment. It's those moments that are my favorite.
Welcome back to Newsroom. Hundreds of thousands of Medicare patients across the U.S. will be seeing lower prices on dozens of prescription drugs. Today, the Biden administration announced Medicare Part B enrollees will pay less for 54 prescription drugs. Many of those drugs are used to treat cancer, osteoporosis, pneumonia, and other conditions. The cuts are possible through a provision in the Inflation Reduction Act, making drug companies pay rebates if they raise Medicare prices faster than the rate of inflation. Patients will start seeing the price drops this week.
One of the largest oil and gas consolidation deals in the U.S. is one step closer to closing. The FTC has cleared Chevron's $53 billion purchase of the Hess Corporation. As part of the order, Hess CEO John Hess has been barred from serving on Chevron's board. The Federal Trade Commission says this was over Hess's alleged communication with members of the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries, or OPEC. The FTC alleges Hess encouraged high-level representation of the group. Hess's board believes the claims are meritless. Chevron and Hess have one more legal hurdle, a challenge brought on by Hess partners in a Guyana joint venture with ExxonMobil and CNOOC Limited. That decision is expected sometime next year.
Thousands of Verizon users were without cell phone service today following a widespread outage. More than 104,000 users across the U.S. reported having little to no service Monday morning. Now that's according to Down Detector, which tracks user reports of internet disruptions. The outage reportedly impacted a large swath of the Midwest, along with several major cities, including Atlanta, Chicago, Denver, Los Angeles, New York, and Phoenix. Many users said their cell phones were intermittently displaying SOS mode, leaving them unable to place calls or send or receive text messages. Verizon posted on social media that it was aware of an issue impacting service and says that it is working quickly to resolve it.
A Missouri mother and her lawyers will try to convince a jury this week that Abbott, Reckitt's, Mead Johnson, and St. Louis Children's Hospital are responsible for her premature son's severe intestinal illness. She said he contracted the illness from the company's formulas after being born at the hospital. The trial in St. Louis, Missouri State Court begins with jury selection today. The case is part of a larger legal battle that has already led to verdicts of $60 million against Reckitt. Abbott has been ordered to pay $495 million. Nearly 1,000 similar cases are still ongoing nationwide. Plaintiffs said the cow's milk-based formula increases the risk of necrotizing enterocolitis in premature babies. The condition has an estimated fatality rate of more than 20%. They also said the companies failed to warn about this risk. Both companies said the lawsuit's claims are not supported by evidence and that their products are essential for premature babies.
California is removing preferences for legacy and donor applicants to private colleges. NTD's David Lamb reports.
California's new law attempts to make college admissions fairer at private nonprofit colleges in California. The governor signed Assembly Bill 1780 on Monday. The law bans legacy and donor preferences, meaning colleges cannot consider an applicant's relationship with an alumnus or someone who's donated to the college. The governor said the California dream shouldn't be accessible to just a lucky few, which is why we're opening the door to higher education wide enough for everyone fairly. The law affects private institutions like Stanford and Santa Clara University. According to the governor's office, these preferences have already been excluded from admissions to the public California State University system. The University of California system also eliminated legacy preferences in 1998. This law will take effect starting in September 2025. Independent colleges will be required to report annual data beginning in June 2026. David Lamb, NTD News, California.
Lawyers said today that settlement checks from Norfolk Southern's 2023 derailment could be delayed up to 2 years due to a recent appeal. The appeals challenges a federal judge's decision to approve the $600 million deal. Many residents of East Palestine, Ohio, expressed outrage online over the weekend about the appeal. They're upset because it will delay payments they were relying on to recover from the toxic train crash. The crash released hazardous chemicals into their communities, and some had planned to use the money to relocate. The first checks were supposed to go out by the end of the year, but this won't happen because the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals will first have to address concerns in the case. The lawyers estimate that payments will be delayed at least 6 to 12 months while the court reviews the appeal. The delay could be even longer if the case goes to the U.S. Supreme Court.
In France, a public debate on immigration policies is ongoing. It was triggered by the murder of a young woman, allegedly raped and murdered by an illegal migrant. NTD's international correspondent David Vivis attended a commemoration for the victim yesterday in Paris.
The body of Philippine, a 19-year-old student, was found buried in a Paris park on September 21st. The suspect, a 22-year-old Moroccan, was arrested in Switzerland a few days later.
The murder of Philippine in Paris has ignited a heated debate on immigration policies after it was revealed that the suspect, a Moroccan national previously convicted of rape, was due to deportation.
A judge has set the suspect free on September 3rd because the expulsion process was bogged down in administrative delays. This murder comes after several similar cases have been reported in the country in recent months. 500 people gathered in Paris on Sunday to mourn the young woman's death. The president of Nemesis Association, Alice Cordier, says it's alarming that many women in France don't feel safe.
Safety is a very serious matter in France. There's more and more of it. Women are going out armed in France. We've got pepper bombs, we've got little knives, we've got needles in our buns. Women have to choose which paths they're going to take to avoid the trouble.
Her association organizes protests about violence against women. They say illegal immigrants can pose more of a risk of violence for women. Official figures say only 7% of illegal migrants with deportation warrants are actually deported. For the Nemesis Association, France's laws are lenient regarding the condemnation of sexual aggression in perpetrators.
It's been a year since I was raped. It was November 11th, 2023. I've been trying to fight for a year to get answers from the government and to ask for action. There's nothing from them. So I really hope that with the new government, something can be done so they can make the deportation warrants actually work.
According to the Paris prefecture, 77% of rapes in Paris in 2023 were committed by foreigners. France's new government stated last week that it's open to toughening immigration laws. David Vives, NTD News, Paris.
Coming up, an annual event in London honors a medieval rite dating back to the 12th century.
That's right, a renowned British actor herds sheep as part of the tradition. More on that in just a moment here on NTD News.
The tempting online world is encroaching on our campus.
Is unplugging cables and confiscating phones the solution to protect our children? No, we just need a clean multimedia platform. Join Ganjing Campus to leverage premium channel features, professional development courses, and kindness event toolkits tailored for teachers. Build a truly positive and interactive classroom community. Foster a pure and delightful learning environment for children.
According to ancient Chinese medicine, purslane is considered a medicinal herb and is used to help lower cholesterol, improve vascular functions, and prevent diabetes. Perilla seeds can nourish the lungs and spleen. It is used to treat asthma and improve pulmonary functions. Puritang green vegetable omega-3 is made from purslane and perilla seeds from Hwangmae Mountain in South Korea. It contains over 90% of omega-3, 6, 7, and 9. The highest concentration possible without chemical additives. The soft gel is made of natural seaweed. It is 100% organic and vegan. Both adults and children can take it with peace of mind. Ancient recipes were passed down from heaven to bring prosperity and longevity. Puritang green vegetable omega-3.
The 7th NTD International Piano Competition will take place at the Kaufman Music Center in New York City. Pianists from around the world will come together to revive the great piano masterpieces. Join us on this uplifting journey. The semifinals, finals, and the winner's concert will be open to audiences and live streamed from October 17th to the 19th. Get tickets now at 212-501-3330.
Being a cowboy, well, I don't know anything different. I had a very successful career. Life was fast. I was preparing physically. I wasn't doing anything mentally. And then I got hurt. I dug into mental health. I wanted to be better as a person. I start my day with a workout. I live life 8 seconds at a time. Find a place to stop and just breathe. Love your mind.
It's time to take a break from policy and world affairs and go on a meandering walk in the park. NTD's Kevin Hogan knows just the place for that adventure where it awaits.
Central Park, a breath of fresh air in the concrete jungle, complete with waterfalls, a castle, and over 50 miles of pedestrian routes. But that's not all. You get a connection with nature, plenty of opportunities to play sports, and it even offers the intangibles, empty, wide open spaces to see the skyline. For more on the history of the park and its landmarks, we hear from Pauline Fromer. She's the co-president of Fromer Guidebooks.
We are in the architectural heart of the park. It's called Bethesda Terrace. Right behind me, that is the Angel Bethesda. It's a fountain created by the first woman to ever get this type of commission from a city in the United States. Her name was Emma Stubbins, and she created this fountain there in the 1860s. Now, the reason why we have a fountain with an angel on it is it celebrates New York City getting fresh water. In the 1840s, New York was about to run out of water. It was filthy, it wasn't drinkable, and so in a major feat of engineering, they created one of the first aqueducts in the United States, carrying water 44 miles from upstate New York, Croton-on-Hudson, to here. And it was one of the reasons the city was able to grow and become the major metropolis it is today.
The park's construction started in 1858. It's all man-made. With 5 million cubic yards of earth moved to create the scenery, builders made tens of bridges and overpasses and planted 500,000 trees and other greenery. It took 15 years to make, with a budget of a whopping $14 million back then. Let's take a walk down the mall, the only straight pathway in the park.
This is where people in the Gilded Age, if you've seen that HBO series, this is where they would come out and promenade, meet their neighbors, wear their finest clothes.
That's amazing. And Central Park is the oldest and most visited park in the United States, and it beats out some countries like Monaco. It's got 300 more acres than it. Go figure, right?
Yeah, and not only the oldest park, it was the first landscaped public park in the United States. So every other park in the United States was influenced by Central Park. Many of them look like this park quite deliberately.
That is awesome. And what about Cleopatra's Needle?
Cleopatra's Needle was a gift of the Egyptian government to the United States in 1881, but the structure is much older than that. It was created in 1600 BC. It's filled with hieroglyphics, it's several stories high, and you can tell what's being said in the hieroglyphics. It's all translated in the base.
If those tidbits pique your interest, you can find out about all the places to visit in Central Park in Pauline's book, Frommer's New York City. Some passers-by share their favorite parts of this public space.
Yeah, I want to join a run club. I think it's really inspiring that there's so many people out here because it definitely makes me want to become more fit and experience the nature of New York.
Mainly to do with films, to be honest. So Tavern on the Green and the pond where Stuart Little raced his boat and that kind of thing.
My favorite part is it's spacious, it's quiet, probably the quietest place in New York, and it's free. The only thing free in New York.
I like that it's the only place in the city when we can run and when there's trees and stuff, no building.
Is it big enough?
Yes, definitely. Too big. Too big. When you try to do the whole park as you run, it's like it's too big.
Well, we love the bike around the Central Park, and also with my girlfriend we rent a boat, and it was nice. And then you see turtles and fish around it, and it's lovely. It's lovely.
Central Park really is such a lovely place. Still staying in New York City, the city's largest public cemetery is 155 years old, and it's often overlooked. Purchased by the city in 1868, the little-known island is the final resting place for more than 1 million souls. Here's NTD's Andrew Thomas with more.
Hart Island is one of the largest cemeteries in the United States for the unclaimed dead. Cement markers show only numbers, not names, sitting atop mass graves. It has become the final resting place for over 1 million people. Ranger Michael Whitten describes the island's past.
We ask the question, what do we owe each other? So we look at the city and its history with Hart Island. It purchased the island back in 1868, and this island has been in use by the city since 1869, so that's 155 years. It's 155 years of history.
Since November, park rangers have led historical tours. Whitten adds that New Yorkers are physically and spiritually closer to Hart Island than they think.
Today's program that we're showing you a bit of here on Hart Island, it's just a taste of it, but it helps to connect New Yorkers to this island that for so long has been isolated from New York, but we are so much more connected to this island and its history than we might realize.
Sergeant O. Marrero is part of the Parks Enforcement Patrol Honor Guard. He described visitors' reactions on the island.
For emotion, there's mixed emotions. Family are happy. Before, some people were saying they weren't allowed to visit. They're happy to actually have some closure with their family. Some people cry. Some people come every visit to visit their mother, their father, or their loved ones.
During World War II, the island served as a disciplinary camp for military personnel. Now it's a place for reflection.
Sometimes we've had people come out and say, it's very peaceful out here. And when we have that moment where you just get to hear the wind rustling in the trees, and the park ranger stops talking, it's very peaceful out here.
Hart Island continues to teach New Yorkers about their city's past and present. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
On to Europe now. A mother-daughter duo is restoring paintings at a church in Spain. The creative team hopes to ensure that the priceless works of art there live on. NTD's Andrew Thomas has the details on their endeavor.
Pilar Roge and Pilar Bosch toil away at the Santos Juanes Church in Valencia, Spain. This mother-daughter team worked diligently to clean stubborn glue from 18th century frescoes. The frescoes were taken down in the 1960s, but then nailed back on, still covered in glue.
It goes through 3 phases. A phase of removing repaints, which are terrible because they were made with varnish and pigments. Then another phase of removing the glues, which were used to stick these panels to the wall. These glues are harmful. Over time, they harden and can have a very negative impact.
And they've come up with an innovative way to clean up these works of art. Pilar Bosch is a microbiologist at the Polytechnic University of Valencia. The scientist trains bacteria by feeding them samples of the glue made from animal collagen. The bacteria then naturally produces enzymes to degrade the glue.
The process consists of growing the microorganisms in glue and nothing else, which is the substance we want to eliminate. After having been growing for 24 hours, I now have to separate the bacteria from the culture medium, the medium where they have grown, which is the glue, so that I can apply only the bacteria to the frescoes.
The mother-daughter duo then mixes the bacteria with a natural algae-based gel and spreads it on the paintings. After 3 hours, the gel is removed, revealing the actual paintings.
The bacteria have already worked on the glue, so the remaining glue that the bacteria have not digested remains attached to the agar. That's what made it change color. It was transparent, and now it's slightly yellow. And the remains that stay, a mix of agar, bacteria, or glue, they remove with a brush and water.
Bosch has also applied her use of bacteria to restoration projects in Pisa, Italy, and in Santiago de Compostela in northern Spain. Now she's training a different kind of bacteria to clear walls of graffiti. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
An annual event in London honors a medieval rite dating back to the 12th century. Resurrected in 2013, the tradition honors Britain's wool industry. NTD's Andrew Thomas has more on the country's prized sheep and shepherds.
Renowned British actor Damian Lewis herded sheep Sunday across Southwark Bridge in London. The band of brothers in Homeland Star honored the medieval tradition.
Freemen of the City of London can drive their sheep, always able to drive their sheep toll-free, free of charge, across the bridge, London Bridge as it was in the day, into the City of London in order to sell their produce.
The sheep drive is an ancient rite extended to freemen of the City of London and continues to this day. This year, Emmanuel Cohen received the honor of Master Woolman.
And being a freeman was equivalent to the very first passport. And you could go in and out of the walls of the city, you could travel around England, and you wouldn't be captured and become a serf, almost an indentured slave.
The sheep for the event came from Bedfordshire, from the family-run Manor Farm. Sheep farmer Charles Seamark ensured no sheep escaped into the heart of one of Europe's largest cities.
Well, we have to bring the prettiest ones. So, so any that look good, they're the ones that come for today. Because they've got to look good, for the day for the celebrity. But also they have to be well behaved as well.
Crossing a major thoroughfare in London can be tricky, even for people. Fortunately, a sheepdog kept errant sheep from straying too far from the flock. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
You know, Carrie, it's usually tough to get through Mondays, but with those couple stories just there, I think my day's been pretty good.
Indeed, it's always fun to see a bunch of sheep going right through the city streets. You don't see that every day, do you?
That's right. It's not too bad, if I may.
Well done, well done.
Very fun ending today's show. Thank you for watching NTD Newsroom.
Please join Tiffany Meyer for the NTD Evening News at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 Pacific. I'm Carrie Dunst.
And I am Fiona G. See you tomorrow.